Thousands of years ago, someone built monuments that should not have been possible. Stones weighing hundreds of tons were shaped with astonishing accuracy. Underground cities vanished without explanation, and symbols carved into ancient walls still resist translation. Across the world, archaeologists continue to uncover traces of civilizations whose knowledge seems far beyond their time. These discoveries are real, documented, and deeply unsettling, not because of what we know, but because of what we still cannot explain. Tonight, we journey through abandoned ruins, buried chambers, and forgotten worlds where history begins to blur into mystery. And the deeper we go, the stranger it becomes. Nestled within the lush highlands of what is now Guatemala City, Kaminaljuyu rises quietly from the earth, its ancient mounds and terraces half swallowed by the modern city. From a distance, the site may appear unremarkable, just a series of grassy rises and scattered stone remnants. But to the trained eye, each mound tells a story of a civilization that flourished long before European contact. Kaminaljuyu, whose name translates roughly to Hill of the Dead, was at its peak between 1500 BC and 1200 AD, serving as one of the most influential urban centers in Mesoamerica. As you walk among the remnants, the sheer scale of construction becomes apparent. Massive platforms, once supporting temples and palaces, rise from the soil in geometric precision. Archaeologists have uncovered plazas, intricate drainage systems, and caches of jade and obsidian artifacts, evidence of a society both sophisticated and deeply connected to trade networks spanning the region. Yet for all the knowledge we have unearthed, the city still holds mysteries that resist simple explanation. One cannot help but wonder about the hands that built these terraces. How did the inhabitants move such enormous stones without the aid of beasts of burden or metal tools, technologies unavailable to them? Mainstream archaeology suggests coordinated labor and ingenuity, yet the precision of certain constructions, alignments with celestial events, for example, provokes speculation that goes beyond conventional engineering. Were these mere coincidences, or did Kaminaljuyu's builders possess knowledge we have yet to fully comprehend? The city's role in Mesoamerican history further deepens the intrigue. Kaminaljuyu controlled crucial trade routes that connected distant highland valleys with the Pacific coast. Jade from the Motagua River, obsidian from the Guatemalan highlands, and other exotic materials flowed through its marketplaces. This wealth and influence suggest a society not merely surviving, but thriving with complex political structures and religious hierarchies. Yet the written record is scarce. Unlike later civilizations, Kaminaljuyu left few inscriptions, and the meanings of many artifacts remain opaque. Who were the rulers? What gods guided their decisions? And why, after centuries of prosperity, did the city decline, leaving its massive stone works to be slowly reclaimed by nature? Some researchers have pointed to environmental changes, volcanic activity, or shifts in trade networks as plausible explanations. Others ponder whether spiritual or cosmological factors influenced settlement patterns and city planning. Excavations have revealed offerings buried beneath mounds, sometimes in geometrically precise formations, hinting at ritual practices that modern interpretation can only partially reconstruct. And yet, there is an almost tangible sense of something hidden, a layer of history that resists full comprehension. Even the artifacts themselves provoke questions. Jade masks, intricately carved figurines, and ceremonial axes suggest a society that valued both artistic expression and symbolic meaning. Were these objects simply status symbols, or did they serve purposes we cannot yet imagine? Tools in ceremonies that connected the living to the divine, or markers of knowledge lost to time? The sheer craftsmanship implies a worldview steeped in symbolism, yet the exact beliefs remain elusive. As the sun dips low, casting long shadows over the mounds, Kaminaljuyu feels less like an archaeological site and more like a guardian of secrets. Every mound, every stone, every artifact seems to whisper of lives once lived, decisions once made, and wisdom perhaps too vast for modern understanding. For every answer uncovered, new questions emerge. And as the city silently endures beneath the weight of centuries, one is left to wonder, what truths about Kaminaljuyu remain buried, waiting for someone to discover them? As the dense forests of Mesoamerica give way to the hills and plains of the Aegean, our journey shifts across continents, centuries, and cultures, arriving now at a place where stone itself seems to defy expectation. Tiryns, perched on a rocky hill in the Peloponnese of what is now Greece, rises like a sentinel over the surrounding landscape. Its walls, immense and curiously irregular, are composed of massive boulders, some weighing several tons, stacked with a precision that continues to baffle architects and historians alike. Walking among these remnants, one cannot help but sense the ambition and ingenuity of those who once called this citadel home. The city of Tiryns, flourishing in the 2nd millennium BC, is often associated with the Mycenaean civilization, yet its origins stretch even deeper into prehistory. The most striking feature is its cyclopean walls, a term inspired by ancient myth. The Greeks themselves believed only giants could have moved such stones. Modern analysis confirms that no simple levers or pulleys alone could account for their placement. How did human hands, without the mechanical advantages we possess today, lift and fit these stones so seamlessly? Was it sheer ingenuity, a mastery of techniques lost to time, or perhaps knowledge passed down from unknown sources? Within these formidable walls lay not only fortifications, but also corridors, terraces, and chambers whose purposes remain partially speculative. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of palatial structures, storage rooms, and richly decorated halls, suggesting a society that was both militarily vigilant and culturally sophisticated. Frescoes depicting hunting scenes, religious rituals, and scenes of daily life hint at a civilization with complex social hierarchies and symbolic expression. Yet despite these discoveries, the rhythm of life at Tiryns, the choices, beliefs, and ambitions of its people, remains largely enigmatic. Trade and influence flowed across the Aegean, linking Tiryns with other Mycenaean centers, and yet the city's unique construction methods raise questions about knowledge exchange. Could the builders have shared architectural secrets with distant cities? Or was Tiryns an independent experiment in human engineering? And what of the myths entwined with the site? Ancient stories of King Proetus and Heracles linger in the collective imagination, blending history with legend. Are these tales mere allegory, or do they preserve fragments of truth about rituals, power struggles, or lost technologies that ordinary records could not capture? Excavations have also revealed evidence of destruction and reconstruction, layers of earth and stone telling a story of repeated adaptation and resilience. But the causes remain uncertain. Were these collapses the result of conflict, natural disasters, or shifts in political or religious practices? And why did the citadel eventually fade from prominence, leaving its walls as silent witnesses to a world that once thrived here? Even the construction itself speaks in whispers. Some researchers note that the cyclopean walls, though massive, incorporate subtle curves and irregularities that seem almost deliberate, as if designed to absorb seismic shocks or channel water. Others wonder if the irregularity reflects a deeper understanding of geometry or an aesthetic principle now lost. Walking among the stones, one can almost sense an awareness encoded in the architecture, a message from the past that refuses to be fully deciphered. As twilight descends over the Peloponnesian hills, Tiryns stands quiet yet imposing. Every stone, every corridor, and every faded fresco invites contemplation of a world where human capability and mystery intersect. For all that has been unearthed, the citadel guards secrets yet unsolved. and as we trace its walls and imagine the lives of those who shaped them, we are left to wonder, what knowledge, what stories, and what truths remain buried beneath these ancient stones, waiting for someone, someday, to uncover them. Leaving the stone corridors and cyclopean walls of Tiryns behind, we now journey across the continent, following the arc of ancient human ingenuity to the rugged heights of the eastern Rhodope Mountains in modern-day Bulgaria. Here, perched atop a steep rocky hill, sits Perperikon, a sprawling complex of terraces, rock-cut chambers, and monumental stones that has drawn scholars, mystics, and travelers for centuries. From a distance, the site resembles a jagged crown on the mountain, a natural fortress seemingly carved by both human hands and the slow, patient work of nature itself. But closer inspection reveals a civilization etched in stone, layered in mystery, and shrouded in unanswered questions. Perperikon's origins stretch deep into prehistory, with human activity at the site dating back as far as 5000 BC. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of Neolithic settlements, followed by Thracian sanctuaries, and later, constructions that suggest the presence of an organized city during the late classical period. Yet the evidence is fragmented. Terraces rise unevenly, staircases twist unpredictably, and massive rock altars interrupt what would otherwise be logical planning. Even the more orderly sections, walls, ceremonial spaces, and rock-cut chambers, carry the imprint of decisions we cannot fully understand. How were these structures used, and by whom? And why was this remote peak chosen as a center of human activity for thousands of years? The Thracians, who inhabited the region around the first millennium BC, left Perperikon as a sacred site, a place where religion, power, and ritual converged. Legends claim that it was a temple of Dionysus, a place of oracles, or even a site of ancient blood rituals. Archaeological evidence supports some of these claims. Large ceremonial spaces, rock-cut altars, and signs of pyres suggest religious observance, while remnants of fortified walls hint at protection, perhaps from invaders, perhaps from more enigmatic threats. But the mystery deepens when one considers the scale and sophistication of the stonework. Massive stones have been shaped and positioned with precision that would challenge modern engineers without the benefit of modern machinery. Were these Thracians exceptional artisans, or did they inherit techniques and knowledge from a civilization even older, now lost to time? Trade and culture undoubtedly passed through Perperikon. Finds of pottery, jewelry, and inscriptions indicate connections with distant Mediterranean and Balkan civilizations. Yet the inscriptions themselves remain partially undeciphered, hinting at beliefs and practices that resist translation into contemporary understanding. Some stones bear carvings that may be symbolic rather than linguistic, suggesting that part of the site's purpose was not functional but esoteric, reserved for select rituals or spiritual experiences. What knowledge or wisdom did these symbols encode? And what prompted generations of people to return to this hill again and again to build, worship, and modify its terraces? Natural elements also play an intriguing role in the mystery. Perperikon's position atop a high, rocky peak gives it dramatic visibility over the surrounding valleys, but it also presents immense challenges. Steep cliffs, irregular rock formations, and the sheer weight of the boulders used in construction all raise questions about the methods and planning employed by ancient builders. Some scholars suggest advanced understanding of leverage, counterweights, and stone-cutting techniques, while others speculate about unknown methods, perhaps even lost technologies. Did the Thracians harness principles we no longer remember, or were these feats achieved purely through ingenuity, patience, and coordinated labor? Then there are the oracular traditions associated with Perperikon. Ancient writers hinted at prophetic rituals conducted within its chambers, and modern researchers have found evidence of underground rooms and chambers with unusual acoustics. Some chambers amplify sound in ways that would have made whispered words seem powerful and authoritative. Could these natural acoustics have contributed to the perception of divine prophecy, lending an almost supernatural authority to priests or seers? Or was this an intentional design, a deliberate shaping of space to manipulate human perception, a merging of spiritual belief and architectural brilliance? Even the decline of Perperikon adds to its enigma. After centuries of use, the site was abandoned and partially destroyed, leaving layers of collapsed terraces and buried chambers. Was this due to changing religious practices, political shifts, or environmental pressures? Or might it reflect a more subtle, internal transformation, a spiritual or cultural change that rendered the sacred site obsolete? Today, the terraces and stone chambers stand silent, whispering fragments of a history that modern scholarship has only begun to unravel. As one moves through the labyrinth of rock-cut staircases, open-air altars, and crumbling walls, the interplay between human ambition and natural grandeur becomes undeniable. Perperikon feels alive with echoes of the past, ritual chants, hurried footsteps, whispered prayers, and perhaps even arguments or celebrations that took place thousands of years ago. Every stone seems to ask questions. Who shaped it? For what purpose? What did the builders hope to achieve by aligning stones, stairs, and chambers in this particular formation? And yet, for all that has been discovered, so much remains concealed. The upper terraces hint at structures that have been lost to erosion. The lower chambers remain only partially excavated, and the symbolic carvings resist definitive interpretation. Could there be knowledge still buried within the rock, waiting for future archaeologists to uncover it? Or are the mysteries of Perperikon meant to endure, a testament to human ambition and the unknowable depths of ancient spirituality? As the sun dips behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows over the terraces, one cannot help but feel both awe and curiosity. Perperikon stands as a monument not just to the Thracians, but to the enduring human desire to reach beyond the known, to touch the divine, and to inscribe meaning upon the world. And as the wind whispers through its chambers and across its terraces, the questions linger. What rituals were performed here? What messages were encoded in the stone, and what truths about humanity's past still await discovery in this ancient, enigmatic hill? From the rugged heights of Perperikon, we journey now further east into the ancient landscapes of the South Caucasus, where the mountains of Georgia rise in jagged splendor, their slopes dotted with terraces, caves, and stone remnants of civilizations long vanished. Here, on a high plateau overlooking verdant valleys and distant peaks, sits the enigmatic Abuli Fortress, a site whose massive stone walls and terraces whisper of a past both distant and elusive. At first glance, it is a fortress like many others, yet the sheer scale of construction and the precision with which massive volcanic rocks have been arranged suggest a mastery of engineering that continues to challenge modern understanding. Abuli Fortress, perched at an elevation exceeding 2,000 meters, has been linked to the early Bronze Age, with some estimates placing its origins as far back as 2,500 BC. The site occupies a strategic position, commanding views over the surrounding landscape and controlling access to passes that connect the highlands to the lowlands. Its location alone invites questions. Why here, on this windswept plateau, hundreds of meters above the nearest settlements? Was it purely for defense, or did the placement carry symbolic or ritual significance as well? The fortress is composed of multiple terraces, each built from massive stones, many weighing several tons. These stones are stacked in precise, interlocking formations, creating walls that have withstood millennia of harsh weather. Archaeologists note that such cyclopean construction is not unique to Abuli, yet the sophistication and scale of the site remain remarkable. How did early builders transport these stones over steep and rugged terrain? Were simple levers, ramps, and human labor sufficient, or did the construction reflect techniques now lost to history? The answers remain elusive, leaving room for both careful study and speculation. Within the terraces lie structures that suggest a complex social and possibly ceremonial function. Excavations have revealed circular platforms, remnants of dwellings, and spaces that appear to have been used for gatherings or rituals. Pottery fragments, obsidian tools, and traces of metallurgy indicate that Abuli was more than a military outpost. It was a hub of human activity, a center where craftsmanship, trade, and perhaps spiritual practice converged. Yet no inscriptions or written records have survived, leaving the intentions, beliefs, and hierarchies of its builders largely mysterious. Some researchers propose that the fortress served a primarily defensive role, guarding key routes and signaling the presence of a dominant power in the region. Others suggest that Abuli may have had a more esoteric purpose. Could its elevated terraces have been aligned with celestial events, used to track the movement of the sun, moon, or stars? Could the site have functioned as a sacred space where ritual and observation of the heavens intertwined, offering insight into cycles of time, agriculture, and religious life? The architecture itself hints at more than mere practicality, as if the builders sought to encode knowledge into the stones, knowledge that remains beyond our grasp. Even the landscape surrounding Abuli Fortress adds layers to its enigma. The plateau offers striking views of distant peaks and valleys, but it also presents natural challenges: harsh winds, steep cliffs, and unpredictable weather. How did early communities sustain themselves in such conditions, transporting food, water, and materials over long distances? The combination of isolation and accessibility, of natural fortification and human ingenuity, underscores the site's dual nature, a place of both protection and exposure, survival and symbolism. The construction techniques themselves provoke fascination. The massive stones are fitted with remarkable precision, and some terraces show evidence of careful leveling and drainage systems that would have required both knowledge and coordination. Was this the result of generations of incremental building, each group adding to the site over centuries? Or was it a deliberate, planned endeavor from the outset? And why was such immense effort devoted to a location that, while strategically valuable, seems almost punitive in its remoteness and environmental challenges? Abuli Fortress also raises questions about the people who built it. Who were they, and what motivated their monumental constructions? Did they see the fortress as a home, a refuge, a place of spiritual significance, or perhaps all three at once? Archaeologists have uncovered traces of domestic life, but the scale and fortification suggest that the site transcended mere habitation. Was Abuli a symbol of power and identity, a statement to rivals and neighbors, or a sacred threshold connecting earth and sky, the temporal and the divine? As the sun sets over the plateau, casting long shadows across the terraces and boulders, the fortress seems to hold its secrets close. Every stone, every platform, every fragment of pottery is a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and mystery. And yet, for all that has been studied, the site guards its most profound questions. How were these monumental constructions achieved? What social, spiritual, or astronomical knowledge guided the builders? And what aspects of Abuli Fortress remain hidden, buried beneath centuries of soil, rock, and human imagination, waiting for those who will one day unravel them? In standing among its terraces, one cannot help but feel the presence of the past, a silent dialogue stretching across millennia. Abuli Fortress, perched high in the Georgian highlands, is more than stone and earth. It is a monument to human curiosity and perseverance, a riddle in which every answer uncovers yet more questions. And as the wind sweeps across the plateau, the fortress seems to ask quietly but insistently, what mysteries of the ancient world remain just beyond our reach, and who will be brave enough to uncover them? From the high plateaus of Abuli Fortress, where massive stones whisper of human ambition and mystery, we now journey west across the Mediterranean to the rugged, sun-drenched landscapes of Sardinia. Here, amidst rolling hills and jagged cliffs, the Domus de Janas tombs emerge quietly from the earth, carved directly into the rock as though the land itself had offered its body to house the dead. At first glance, they appear unassuming, small, hollowed chambers etched into cliffsides, but as the eye adjusts to shadowed recesses, the intricate patterns, carved niches, and delicate symbolic decorations reveal a civilization both practical and profoundly spiritual. The Domus de Janas, or House of the Fairies, date from the late Neolithic to early Bronze Age, roughly 3,400 to 2,700 BC, a period when human communities across the Mediterranean were beginning to experiment with monumental architecture and ritualized burial practices. These tombs are not mere graves. They are complex subterranean spaces, some comprising multiple chambers connected by narrow corridors, with carved doorways, benches, and even symbolic representations of doors and windows. The care and craftsmanship involved suggest a society that imbued death with ritual, symbolism, and possibly even a vision of an afterlife. But why these small, hidden rock cavities, scattered across remote cliffs rather than concentrated in a single necropolis? The interiors of the tombs are equally compelling. Many are adorned with symbolic motifs, spirals, zigzags, and other geometric forms etched with painstaking precision into the rock walls. Some chambers feature carved depictions of tools, animals, or abstract symbols whose meaning has been lost to time. Were these designs purely decorative, or did they serve a deeper function, perhaps guiding the spirit, marking sacred knowledge, or signaling cosmological beliefs? Modern archaeology can identify parallels in other Mediterranean cultures, yet the exact significance of these carvings remains elusive. One striking feature is the variation in tomb design. While some chambers are modest, intended perhaps for single burials or small groups, others are far more elaborate, with multiple rooms, internal divisions, and carefully carved benches or platforms. How did these variations reflect the social structure, beliefs, or status of those interred? Did these tombs mark a hierarchy of spiritual or temporal importance, or were they the product of evolving cultural practices over centuries? The lack of inscriptions makes definitive answers difficult, leaving interpretation to careful observation, inference, and cautious speculation. Some researchers propose that the orientation of the tombs may have celestial significance. Certain Domus de Janas face specific points on the horizon where the sun rises or sets at solstices or equinoxes, suggesting an awareness of astronomical cycles. Could these tombs have functioned not only as burial spaces, but also as observatories or ritual markers aligned with the cosmos? If so, what knowledge of the heavens did these early communities possess, and how did it influence their conception of life, death, and the afterlife? The methods used to carve the tombs also invite awe. Tools made of stone and bone would have required extraordinary patience and skill to hollow into solid rock. How did Neolithic artisans manage such precise work without advanced metal implements? Was it sheer labor and persistence, or might there have been techniques or knowledge, now lost, that facilitated this remarkable craftsmanship? The physical effort alone speaks to a culture deeply committed to the preservation of memory, identity, and spiritual practice. Artifacts found within the Domus de Janas further deepen the mystery. Pottery fragments, personal ornaments, and occasional metal objects suggest a society engaged in trade and skilled craft. Yet these items only hint at the lives, stories, and beliefs of those who were interred here. Did the objects serve as offerings for the afterlife, tools for rituals, or symbols of status? And what else might remain hidden in chambers that have yet to be excavated, sealed beneath millennia of rock and earth? The placement of these tombs, often in remote or elevated locations, also raises questions about accessibility and intent. Some lie high on cliffs, difficult to reach even today, while others are nestled within valleys or hillsides, suggesting a deliberate choice by the builders. Was isolation intended to honor the dead, to protect sacred knowledge, or to mark a connection between the living and the spiritual realm? The landscape itself, as much a part of the design as the carved stone, reinforces the sense that these were spaces where the natural and human, the temporal and the eternal, intersected. Even as modern scholars continue to study the Domus de Janas, many questions remain unanswered. The absence of written records leaves us with only stone, shadow, and fragments of material culture as guides. How did these early Sardinian communities conceptualize death and the afterlife? What rituals accompanied burial? And how did the living engage with these sacred spaces? Could there be undiscovered chambers, inscriptions, or symbolic features waiting to reveal more of their secrets? Walking through the narrow corridors, touching the carved benches, and tracing the etched spirals, one senses a profound connection across time. These tombs are more than archaeological sites. They are intimate windows into the lives, beliefs, and aspirations of people who lived over 5 millennia ago. And as the wind moves through the entrances, whispering across the rock faces, it seems to carry faint echoes of prayers, songs, and stories that have survived only in stone. The Domus de Janas invite us to reflect not only on the ingenuity of our ancestors, but also on the enduring mysteries of human expression and spiritual life. And so, as the shadows lengthen across Sardinia's hills, one cannot help but wonder, what further secrets do these tombs conceal? What insights into Neolithic society, ritual practice, or cosmological understanding remain hidden within their stone walls? And what might future discoveries reveal about a culture that, though distant in time, continues to speak to the present through the silent eloquence of carved rock and shadowed chamber? As we leave behind the intricate rock-cut tombs of Sardinia's Domus de Janas, we turn our gaze to the rolling plains and gentle hills of southern Spain, where history has been etched not into cliffs, but into vast, open landscapes. Here, near the modern town of Valencina de la Concepcion in Andalusia, sits the Dolmen de la Pastora, a megalithic monument that seems at once simple and impossibly complex, a silent sentinel of the Neolithic world. From a distance, the dolmen is modest, a mound of earth rising gently from the fertile plain, crowned with massive stone slabs. But as one approaches, the true scale and sophistication become apparent, revealing a structure carefully designed to endure, both physically and symbolically, across millennia. The Dolmen de la Pastora is part of a larger network of megalithic constructions in the region, dating back to approximately 3000 BC during the late Neolithic. These structures are remarkable not only for their size but also for the precision and planning evident in their construction. A central passage leads to a burial chamber, carefully framed by vertical stones and capped with horizontal slabs, forming a space that has survived thousands of years of weather, agriculture, and human activity. But why did these communities devote such effort to building massive stone tombs on these plains? Was it merely a matter of honoring the dead, or did the dolmens serve broader spiritual or societal purposes? Walking along the passageway, the experience is both tangible and enigmatic. The alignment of the dolmen suggests deliberate astronomical consideration. The entrance faces a specific point on the horizon, catching the light of the rising sun on particular days of the year, most notably the winter solstice. Could this have been intentional, a method to mark the passage of time or the changing seasons? If so, it hints at a knowledge of astronomy and celestial cycles that seems advanced for a society often considered prehistoric. Were these early communities tracking the sun not merely for agricultural purposes, but as part of a spiritual understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. Inside the burial chamber, the scale of human effort becomes undeniable. Massive stone slabs, each weighing several tons, were transported from quarries possibly kilometers away. How were such massive stones moved and placed with such precision without advanced machinery? Experiments and studies suggest the use of logs, ropes, and sheer human labor, yet the ingenuity required to coordinate such an endeavor, particularly with the precision needed to ensure the chamber's structural stability, speaks to an organization and technical skill that continue to impress modern engineers. Could there have been methods or knowledge lost to time, techniques that allowed Neolithic builders to shape, lift, and position these stones in ways that defy easy explanation? Archaeologists have discovered human remains, pottery, and symbolic artifacts within Dolmen de Pastora, evidence that the site functioned as a place of ritual and remembrance. Yet these finds raise further questions. Why were the bodies often accompanied by seemingly everyday objects, tools, ceramics, or ornaments? Were these offerings intended to assist the deceased in the afterlife, or did they serve as markers of status, identity, or belief? And why, across hundreds of similar dolmens in the Iberian Peninsula, do we see a surprising uniformity in design, yet subtle variations in size, orientation, and internal arrangement? Could these differences indicate regional traditions, evolving religious practices, or perhaps hidden knowledge accessible only to certain members of the community? The surrounding landscape itself becomes part of the mystery. Situated in an open plain, yet near a river and fertile fields, Dolmen de Pastora occupies a liminal space between earth and sky, daily life, and the realm of the dead. Was this placement practical, ceremonial, or symbolic? Some researchers suggest that the location may have allowed visibility across vast distances, marking territorial boundaries, or functioning as a site of communal gathering. Others propose a spiritual dimension, that the dolmen, rising from the earth, symbolically connected the living to their ancestors, and in turn, to forces beyond human understanding. Equally compelling are the subtle architectural details. The chamber's walls are not purely functional. Some bear faint carvings, lines, or depressions that may have held symbolic meaning. The careful shaping of each stone, the alignment of slabs, and the orientation of the entrance all speak to intentional design choices that transcend mere practicality. Were these markings communicative, ritualistic, or protective? Could they encode stories, laws, or spiritual principles that have been lost over millennia? Despite centuries of study, Dolmen de Pastora continues to resist full explanation. Its construction, purpose, and significance provoke reflection not only on Neolithic society, but also on the universality of human questions about life, death, and the unseen. How did communities without writing systems transmit such knowledge? Was the dolmen part of a broader spiritual landscape, linking multiple sites across the region into a network of sacred spaces? And what secrets might remain hidden beneath the mound, within chambers yet unexplored, or in the subtle alignments that can only be appreciated with careful observation and a deep understanding of celestial patterns? As the sun sets over the plains, casting long shadows across the mound and illuminating the massive stones with a golden light, Dolmen de Pastora exerts its quiet presence. The air seems to hold a resonance, as though centuries of ritual, grief, and reverence linger in the space between earth and sky. Every stone, every chamber, every alignment invites reflection on the ingenuity of those who built it, on the spiritual life of a people long gone, and on the mysteries of the past that still speak to us through the silent eloquence of stone. The dolmen's enduring silence is, paradoxically, its most compelling feature. Unlike more accessible or reconstructed sites, it refuses to reveal all its secrets, leaving space for inquiry, contemplation, and wonder. As we trace the contours of the mound, touch the weathered stones, and imagine the lives of those who built it, the questions multiply. What knowledge guided the hands that shaped this monument? How did it function within the social and spiritual life of its builders? And what truths about human belief, ritual, and ingenuity lie hidden, waiting to be rediscovered by those patient enough to listen to the stone and the shadows it casts? Dolmen de la Pastora is more than a Neolithic tomb. It is a testament to human curiosity, devotion, and ambition. Its stones, carefully chosen and positioned, invite us to consider the relationship between life and death, the tangible and the symbolic, the observable and the unknown. And as twilight spreads across the Andalusian plains, the dolmen's quiet presence challenges us to ponder the depth of human creativity, the endurance of memory, and the mysteries that remain, waiting beneath the earth, silently inviting discovery. As we leave behind the sun-drenched plains of Andalusia, where Dolmen de la Pastora rises quietly from the earth, we move once more into the Mediterranean, this time to the island of Minorca. Here, among rolling hills, low limestone ridges, and fertile valleys, lies Talatí de Dalt, an ancient settlement that whispers of a civilization long vanished, yet astonishingly sophisticated. From afar, the site appears as a series of modest stone terraces, arranged atop a gentle slope overlooking the surrounding landscape. But closer inspection reveals a carefully planned settlement, a testament to human ingenuity, social organization, and spiritual vision that continues to challenge our understanding. Talatí de Dalt dates to the late Bronze Age, roughly between 1200 and 800 BC, and is part of a network of prehistoric sites unique to the Balearic Islands. Its stone structures, walls, circular dwellings, and communal spaces suggest a society that valued both practicality and symbolism. What strikes the modern visitor is not only the precision of the masonry, but the apparent order of the settlement. Streets and paths wind through the site in a deliberate manner, connecting houses, open courtyards, and defensive walls, revealing a planning that seems almost modern in its clarity. How did these Bronze Age communities conceive such organization? And what principles guided their choices, both practical and spiritual? The circular dwellings, known as talayots, dominate the site. These stone towers, often cylindrical or square, are constructed from massive boulders stacked with care, some weighing several tons. Their purpose remains debated. Some archaeologists suggest defensive functions, serving as watchtowers to survey the surrounding plains and coastlines. Others propose ceremonial or communal roles, spaces for gatherings, rituals, or the observance of celestial events. The talayots themselves, rising silently from the landscape, evoke questions about the intersection of daily life, defense, and spiritual practice. Were these communities organized around hierarchy, ritual, or necessity, or some combination of all three? Excavations at Talatí de Dalt have revealed fascinating traces of material culture. Pottery fragments, tools, and ornaments indicating both local craft and contact with distant regions. These artifacts suggest trade networks, specialized labor, and a level of societal complexity that might be underestimated for Bronze Age island communities. Yet even as we piece together these elements, the broader purpose of the settlement remains enigmatic. Why did such carefully planned communities emerge on islands that, by modern standards, seem geographically constrained? Was it sheer practicality, the result of available resources and topography, or might there have been a spiritual or symbolic reasoning guiding site selection and construction? The defensive aspect of Talatí de Dalt cannot be overlooked. Low walls, strategically placed stones, and elevated positions indicate concern for protection, yet the settlement is not heavily fortified in the way a mainland fortress might be. This raises questions about the nature of potential threats and the social dynamics of the time. Were these people guarding against rival communities, external invaders, or perhaps symbolic forces that threatened social cohesion? Could the architecture itself reflect a dual purpose, practical defense intertwined with ritual expression, where the boundary between physical protection and spiritual safeguarding is blurred? The arrangement of the talayots and dwellings also hints at celestial awareness. Some researchers suggest alignments with the solstices or notable stars, an indication that astronomical observation may have been integral to both daily and ceremonial life. If this is so, Talatí de Dalt was not merely a settlement. It was a living observatory, a space where the movements of the sun, moon, and stars informed agricultural cycles, social rituals, and perhaps even spiritual cosmology. What knowledge of the heavens did these Bronze Age islanders possess? And how might this knowledge have shaped their social hierarchy, religious practices, or understanding of life and death? Equally intriguing are the subterranean or semi-hidden features of the site. Small chambers, carefully excavated depressions, and stone-lined spaces suggest areas devoted to storage, ritual, or commemoration. Were these spaces purely functional, preserving food or water, or did they hold ceremonial significance, serving as thresholds between the living and the spiritual world? Some scholars note the striking similarity of these spaces to other Mediterranean sites, raising questions about cultural diffusion, shared cosmology, or independent development of similar architectural solutions across distances separated by sea. The construction methods themselves challenge modern understanding. Stones were carefully selected, transported, and shaped without advanced tools. The precision with which circular towers were erected, with stones placed to ensure stability across centuries, implies a knowledge of engineering principles that may not be fully appreciated today. Could this knowledge have been transmitted orally through generations, encoded in practice rather than in written records? Or might there have been techniques now lost, forgotten over millennia, leaving us with structures whose creation feels almost magical in its sophistication? Talatí de Dalt is also a reminder of human adaptation and resilience. Life on an island presents unique challenges: limited resources, variable weather, and isolation from larger mainland centers. Yet these communities thrived, creating not only shelters but organized, enduring settlements that reflect ingenuity, cooperation, and a deep understanding of their environment. How did they balance daily survival with the social and spiritual demands of such construction? And what can we learn from their relationship with the land, the stones, and the sky? Despite centuries of study, the settlement retains an aura of mystery. Who precisely lived here, and how was their society organized? What rituals accompanied daily life and seasonal change, and what beliefs shaped their understanding of the cosmos? Could undiscovered chambers, carvings, or alignments still lie hidden, waiting to illuminate aspects of Bronze Age life that have eluded archaeologists for decades? Each unanswered question reminds us that history is not merely about what has been uncovered, but also about what remains silent beneath the soil and stones. As the sun casts long shadows across Talatí de Dalt, the talayots rise like stone sentinels, keeping watch over the island as they have for more than 3 millennia. The wind whispers through the open courtyards, rustling over terraces and across the limestone, carrying echoes of voices, footsteps, and rituals long vanished. Each stone, each chamber, each pathway invites reflection, offering a tangible connection to a civilization that, while distant in time, continues to challenge, inspire, and mystify. Talatí de Dalt, in its quiet endurance, asks more questions than it answers. What knowledge guided its builders? How did they integrate survival, social order, and spirituality into a single, cohesive settlement? And what truths remain hidden beneath the stones, waiting for careful observation, patient excavation, or perhaps a new perspective to reveal them? The site reminds us that human ingenuity, curiosity, and reverence for the unknown are timeless. and that even the smallest island in the vast Mediterranean can hold mysteries that reach across millennia, bridging past and present in ways that continue to inspire awe. Walking through the settlement today, one cannot help but feel a sense of continuity, that the people who built Talatí de Dalt, though long gone, remain connected to the landscape, to the sky, and to us, through stone, shadow, and silence. And as the light fades across the terraces, one lingering question remains. What further secrets does Talatí de Dalt conceal, waiting to illuminate our understanding of a world that existed long before written history, yet speaks powerfully to the human mind and spirit even today? As we leave behind the Bronze Age settlement of Talatí de Dalt, with its taliots silently marking the passage of millennia, our journey moves to another corner of the Mediterranean, yet a landscape shaped by the same ancient forces of stone, ritual, and human ingenuity. On the island of Gozo, part of the Maltese archipelago, lies Tal-Qadi Temple, an enigmatic site whose stones seem to hold secrets that stretch far beyond the visible horizon. Nestled amidst rolling fields, low limestone ridges, and terraced valleys, the temple rises quietly from the earth, its weathered megaliths exuding a calm dignity that belies their mysterious origin. From afar, Tal-Qadi Temple appears deceptively simple, a cluster of massive stone blocks arranged in a semicircular pattern, set within the contours of the natural landscape. But as one draws closer, the true complexity reveals itself. Carefully placed orthostats, recessed niches, and the remains of what may once have been an intricate interior chamber suggest not casual construction, but a site of purpose, precision, and profound ritual. The arrangement seems intentional, almost meditative, inviting both observation and reflection. Every stone, every gap, every curve appears to have been considered carefully, a dialogue between human effort and the natural world. Tal-Qadi Temple dates to the late Neolithic, approximately 3,600 to 2,500 BC, a period when the islands of Malta and Gozo were home to some of Europe's most ambitious and enigmatic megalithic constructions. Like the nearby Gantija and Manajdra complexes, Tal-Qadi embodies the remarkable skill and organizational capacity of these early communities. Yet Tal-Qadi stands apart, in part because of its modest scale, its quiet positioning, and the subtle precision of its architecture. What drove these islanders to dedicate time and labor to building such structures, often in remote or elevated locations, far from the apparent necessities of daily life? Was it purely a matter of religious devotion, or might the site have also served practical, astronomical, or even social functions? Approaching the main structure, one notices the careful shaping of the megaliths. Stones weighing several tons were quarried, transported, and positioned with remarkable precision, their arrangement forming a cohesive whole that has endured for more than 5 millennia. How did these Neolithic builders achieve such feats with tools limited to stone, wood, and bone? Could there have been techniques, now lost to history, that allowed for the careful leveling, levering, and placement of these massive blocks with such enduring stability? And why did these early communities invest such extraordinary labor into monuments that, from a distance, seem both modest and intimate, rather than grandiose? Inside the temple, traces of ritual use become apparent. Small depressions in the rock, shallow basins, and carefully placed recesses suggest spaces for offerings, libations, or symbolic objects. Archaeological evidence hints at repeated use, perhaps over generations, indicating that the site functioned as more than a singular ceremonial structure. But what did these rituals entail? Were they celebrations of celestial cycles, acts of community cohesion, or deeply personal expressions of spirituality? The absence of written records leaves us reliant on careful observation, comparison with other Neolithic sites, and cautious speculation. The orientation of Tal-Qadi Temple offers further intrigue. Scholars have suggested alignments with solar and lunar events, particularly the movements of the rising and setting sun during equinoxes and solstices. If accurate, this implies a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics, integrated into the design of sacred space. Could these alignments have served as a calendar, a spiritual symbol, or both? And how might such knowledge have been transmitted within a community that had no formal writing system? Each hypothesis deepens the sense of wonder, pointing to a culture that integrated observation of the heavens with the rhythms of human life, ritual, and belief. Artifacts discovered at the site, though fragmentary, reveal glimpses of daily and ritual life. Pottery fragments, small tools, and occasional ornaments suggest a society that combined functional craftsmanship with symbolic expression. Yet the absence of large caches of goods or abundant inscriptions leaves questions unanswered. What offerings were deemed appropriate? How did these items function within ritual practice? And what, if any, secrets lie buried beneath the remaining undisturbed layers of earth and stone? Every excavation uncovers more questions than answers, a reminder that the past resists full comprehension. The very location of Tal-Qadi invites reflection. Elevated yet accessible, secluded yet visible across the surrounding landscape, the temple seems to occupy a liminal space between earth and sky, human and divine, practical and symbolic. Was its placement chosen for strategic observation of both land and celestial patterns? Did it mark territorial significance, a sacred boundary, or a center of spiritual authority? Or was it, in essence, a living connection between the people, the land, and forces beyond human understanding? Such questions cannot be answered definitively, yet they deepen the sense that every stone, every alignment, and every spatial choice held layered meaning. One of the most striking aspects of Tal-Qadi Temple is its enduring silence. Unlike larger and more famous megalithic complexes, it does not impress by sheer scale or monumental grandeur. Its power lies instead in its subtlety, its precision, and the human scale of its design. Walking through its stone corridors and open chambers, one feels a quiet intimacy with the builders, a tangible connection to hands and minds that shaped the rock millennia ago. It is as if the temple itself invites reflection, observation, and contemplation, offering insight not through spectacle, but through quiet endurance. Yet mystery persists. The purpose of specific architectural features, the recessed niches, the carefully shaped orthostats, the possible altars, remains open to interpretation. Were these spaces reserved for communal rituals, solitary acts of devotion, or both? How did the people of Tal-Qadi integrate daily life with ritual observance? And are there aspects of the site, now lost or buried, that might illuminate practices, beliefs, or knowledge that have otherwise disappeared from the historical record? The unanswered questions are as compelling as the structure itself, a reminder that human history is often measured not only in what we uncover, but in what continues to elude us. As the sun moves across the Gozo sky, casting long shadows across Tal-Qadi's megaliths, the temple exerts a quiet, enduring presence. The wind rustles across the stones and through the surrounding fields, carrying a sense of continuity, of human hands shaping stone in accordance with both necessity and reverence. Each step through the site offers a connection to a civilization that, though long vanished, left behind a legacy both tangible and enigmatic. Tal-Qadi Temple, in its calm endurance, asks questions that remain unanswered. What knowledge guided its builders? How were celestial patterns, ritual practice, and community life integrated into a single, enduring site? What truths remain hidden beneath the stones, waiting for future discovery, or perhaps insight that has yet to emerge? The temple's quiet mystery reminds us that even in the small, seemingly isolated corners of the ancient world, human ingenuity, devotion, and curiosity shaped monuments that continue to speak across the millennia. Standing among the weathered stones, one feels both awe and humility. Tal-Qadi does not reveal all of its secrets, but it offers a bridge to the past, a chance to ponder the ingenuity, spirituality, and endurance of those who came before. And as the light shifts across the rugged landscape of Gozo, the temple whispers a question that resonates far beyond the island itself. What else lies hidden within these stones, waiting to illuminate the beliefs, knowledge, and mysteries of an ancient world that still speaks quietly to us today? As we leave behind the quiet limestone terraces of Tal-Qadi Temple, where Neolithic hands shaped stone with ritual precision, we travel eastward into the vast deserts and rugged plateaus of the Arabian Peninsula. Here, amidst sun-scorched expanses and jagged outcrops, lie the enigmatic burial grounds of Khutm and Al-Ain Necropolis. From a distance, they appear as clusters of low, circular mounds, nearly indistinguishable from the natural terrain. Yet these ancient graves, scattered across the desert, are anything but ordinary. They are silent monuments to societies whose stories have largely vanished, leaving only stone and earth to whisper hints of their past. The first impression upon approaching Khutm is one of stark minimalism. The necropolis consists of hundreds of carefully placed stone circles, each enclosing a small chamber or pit. Some measure merely a few meters across, while others expand into complex clusters of concentric rings. The stones are modest in size, yet arranged with a precision that suggests deliberate design rather than random placement. What motivated these communities to labor over these seemingly simple mounds? Were they purely functional tombs, or did they serve as markers of social hierarchy, spiritual portals, or celestial observatories? Al-Ain Necropolis, located nearby, presents a similar yet subtly distinct vision. Its stone mounds are often larger and more elaborate, with evidence of stone-lined chambers and recessed niches that may have held offerings or the remains of the deceased. Excavations have revealed pottery fragments, bone tools, and other artifacts, yet the distribution of objects remains puzzling. Some tombs appear richly provisioned, while others are nearly empty, raising questions about status, ritual significance, or perhaps selective preservation over time. Could these differences reflect social stratification, spiritual roles, or shifting burial practices across generations? Dating these necropolises has been challenging, yet archaeologists suggest their origins lie in the Bronze Age, roughly between 2500 and 1500 BC. This period coincides with the emergence of complex societies across the Arabian Peninsula, societies that were increasingly sedentary, socially organized, and engaged in long-distance trade. The necropolis's careful alignment with natural features, slopes, wadis, and open plains, suggests that their placement was purposeful. Was the desert itself considered sacred, a liminal space where life and death intersected? Did the builders perceive these stone circles as portals to a spiritual realm, or as monuments to the enduring presence of their ancestors? The architecture of the tombs is deceptively simple. Each mound contains stones stacked with a precision that ensures structural stability over millennia. Small, often circular chambers suggest intimate burial spaces, while larger or interconnected clusters hint at communal significance. The lack of inscriptions or monumental sculpture makes interpretation challenging. How did these people convey identity, status, or ritual meaning without written records? Were the shapes and alignments of the stones themselves a language, readable only by those who understood the symbolic and spiritual grammar of the time? Archaeological evidence points to repeated use and maintenance over centuries. Some mounds show signs of successive interments, with newer stones added atop older ones, creating layered histories visible only to careful observation. This practice raises intriguing questions about temporal awareness and ancestral reverence. Did these societies see death as a continuum, a cyclical process linking generations? And if so, how did their understanding of life, death, and the cosmos shape their daily existence, their social hierarchies, and their spiritual practices. The orientation and placement of the necropolises offer additional puzzles. Some researchers have noted alignments with solar and lunar events, suggesting that celestial observation may have guided the organization of graves. Were these alignments intended to mark solstices, equinoxes, or other astronomical cycles, serving both spiritual and practical purposes? Could the careful positioning of each mound have been part of a broader cosmological map, a way for the living to interact with the movements of the heavens while honoring the dead below? The precision of these alignments remains remarkable, especially considering the absence of advanced surveying tools. Artifacts recovered from the sites provide tantalizing, though incomplete, glimpses into the lives and beliefs of the builders. Pottery fragments hint at ritual feasting or offerings, while small stone implements and jewelry suggest personal adornment or symbolic objects placed deliberately with the deceased. Yet the scarcity of inscriptions or monumental markers leaves many questions unanswered. What language of symbolism did these objects convey? How were the living and the dead connected through these rituals? And what remains hidden, unexcavated beneath the shifting sands, that might illuminate aspects of this culture that have so far eluded discovery? The natural environment adds another layer to the mystery. Harsh desert winds, intense heat, and occasional flooding over millennia have both preserved and obscured the necropolises. Stones have weathered, chambers have collapsed, and entire sections of the burial grounds may still lie buried beneath layers of sand and silt. What secrets lie beneath these mounds, waiting to reveal new insights into human adaptation, spirituality, and social organization in a desert landscape that challenged every aspect of survival? Equally compelling is the question of connectivity. Al-Khutm and Al-Ain are not isolated phenomena. Similar necropolises appear throughout the Arabian Peninsula and even extend into surrounding regions. Did these communities share a common cultural framework, or did they develop independently yet convergently, guided by parallel needs and beliefs? Were there networks of communication, trade, or ritual knowledge connecting distant groups, enabling the spread of burial practices and architectural forms across the desert? Even today, the necropolises retain a profound aura of quiet mystery. Walking among the low stone mounds, one is struck by the sense of continuity, the invisible thread connecting the builders to their environment, their dead, and the cosmos itself. Each mound, each chamber, each carefully positioned stone is a silent testament to human ingenuity, spiritual awareness, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world. Yet they do not speak easily. They require patience, observation, and an openness to questions without immediate answers. Al-Khutm and Al-Ain necropolis invite reflection on the fragility and endurance of human memory. How much of the past can we truly reconstruct? How do we interpret the intentions of people who left no written records, only stone markers and subtle alignments? And what deeper truths about life, death, and human society might lie buried beneath the sands, waiting for those with the curiosity and persistence to uncover them? As the desert sun dips toward the horizon, long shadows stretch across the low mounds, emphasizing their circular forms and the subtle patterns carved into the landscape. The wind sweeps across the plains, whispering across stones that have stood for more than 3 millennia, carrying faint echoes of voices, footsteps, and rituals that have long faded. The necropolises of Al-Khutm and Al-Ain are more than grave sites. They are landscapes of thought, belief, and memory, silent yet enduring, inviting us to ponder the lives and legacies of those who came before. And so, as we pause to reflect upon these enigmatic sites, one cannot help but wonder, what remains hidden beneath the sands, stones, and shifting desert winds? What truths about the beliefs, ingenuity, and spiritual lives of these ancient communities are yet to be revealed? Al-Khutm and Al-Ain stand not only as monuments to human mortality, but as invitations to curiosity, contemplation, and awe. A reminder that even in the most desolate and seemingly inhospitable corners of the world, the past continues to speak, softly, patiently, and with unyielding mystery. As the shifting sands of the Arabian deserts recede behind us, carrying with them the silent whispers of Al-Khutm and Al-Ain necropolis, our journey turns westward, across oceans and continents, to the lush, tropical lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula. Here, amid dense jungle and winding stone causeways, lies the governor's palace of Uxmal, a monument that commands both awe and curiosity. Unlike the quiet and understated stone mounds of the desert necropolises, Uxmal rises with monumental presence, its vast facades adorned with intricate carvings, geometric mosaics, and symbolic imagery that speak to a civilization whose sophistication continues to confound historians and archaeologists alike. From the moment the first view of the palace comes into focus, its scale and precision are arresting. Stretching over 100 meters along its longest side, the structure sits atop a slightly elevated platform, yet seems perfectly integrated into the natural contours of the surrounding land. The finely cut limestone blocks, carefully fitted without the use of mortar, create a sense of harmony that belies the immense labor required to construct such a sprawling edifice. Every detail, the latticework, the repeating masks of the rain god Chayak, and the precise alignment of the structure, reveals a society deeply attuned to both aesthetics and symbolism. The governor's palace dates to approximately 700 to 1000 AD, during the height of the late Classic Maya period. It is traditionally considered the administrative center of Uxmal, a city whose influence extended across much of the northern Yucatan. Yet, despite centuries of study, the precise functions of the palace remain partially obscured. Was it purely a governmental hub, a residence for the elite, a ceremonial complex, or some combination of these roles? And why, despite the vastness and sophistication of its architecture, do certain elements suggest symbolic or ritualistic purposes beyond the practical? As one approaches the palace, the craftsmanship becomes more apparent. The low, horizontal profile of the building is punctuated by long, decorative friezes, and the surfaces shimmer with an almost hypnotic pattern of repeating geometric forms. Masks of Chayak, with elongated noses and staring eyes, appear at regular intervals, staring down the observer as if to guard ancient secrets. Could these carvings serve purely as religious iconography, or do they encode a deeper system of knowledge, astronomical, calendrical, or even esoteric, that has yet to be fully decoded? The precision of these designs suggests an intimate understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and symbolic representation, an intellectual sophistication that modern researchers still strive to comprehend. Inside the palace, one finds a series of long, narrow rooms, each opening onto a central corridor that captures light and shadow with remarkable effect. The rooms themselves are unadorned compared to the exterior, yet the positioning of doorways, windows, and staircases implies a deliberate choreography. Some scholars suggest that this interior layout may have been designed to control movement, to stage ceremonies, or to guide the viewer's perception of light and space. Could the architecture itself have been intended as an instrument of social or spiritual influence, a way to shape experience as much as shelter? The palace also demonstrates a remarkable integration with its environment. It is aligned along a roughly east-west axis, and some researchers propose that certain aspects of its construction correspond to solar and lunar cycles. Could the rising or setting sun have illuminated specific carvings during key ritual periods, acting as a celestial clock or signaling important dates for agricultural and ceremonial life? If so, these alignments suggest a civilization capable of sophisticated observational astronomy, fully integrating cosmic cycles into both governance and spirituality. Equally intriguing are the mysteries that surround the construction itself. The sheer scale of the palace, combined with the precision of its masonry, raises questions about the methods used to transport, shape, and assemble massive stone blocks without metal tools or draft animals. How did the Maya achieve such exact fits, often with blocks weighing several tons? Were there techniques, now lost to history, that allowed for this extraordinary level of precision? And if so, what does this imply about the technical knowledge, organization, and labor structures of Uxmal's society? Artifacts recovered from Uxmal, though limited within the palace itself, provide tantalizing hints. Ceramic fragments, figurines, and traces of pigment suggest that the structure was more than a seat of power. It was also a place where rituals, offerings, and artistic expression occurred. Could these objects indicate specific cult practices, or do they hint at a complex interplay between political authority and spiritual observance? The questions multiply when one considers the broader context of Uxmal. The city's numerous other pyramids, ceremonial platforms, and ball courts suggest a society in which architecture, ritual, and governance were deeply intertwined. The surrounding landscape reinforces the sense of deliberate placement and sacred geography. The palace is set upon a natural ridge, offering commanding views of Uxmal and the surrounding jungle. From this vantage point, one can imagine the city's inhabitants navigating between structures, performing ceremonies, and observing celestial events. Was the palace intended to dominate not only the physical terrain, but also the symbolic and spiritual landscape, asserting both political and cosmic authority? And if so, how did the Maya integrate these layers of meaning into their understanding of time, history, and human purpose? Even today, the governor's palace exerts a quiet but undeniable presence. Standing before its massive facade, one feels both the ambition and the ingenuity of a people who could command stone, space, and symbol with equal mastery. Yet the more we study the palace, the more questions arise. Why does the Maya civilization, despite its impressive achievements in architecture, mathematics, and astronomy, leave so many enigmas unsolved? What knowledge has been lost, buried by time, conquest, and the relentless advance of the natural world? The mystery deepens when one considers Uxmal in relation to other Mesoamerican cities. Why did certain design elements, such as the Puuc architectural style, proliferate here but appear differently or not at all elsewhere? Were these choices purely aesthetic, or did they convey messages, codes, or ritual functions understood only by those within the culture? And what might these patterns tell us about the movement of ideas, artisans, and spiritual traditions across a complex and interconnected landscape of cities and kingdoms? As the afternoon sun casts its shadows across the palace's friezes, highlighting the intricate patterns of stone mosaics and masks, one senses the persistence of mystery in every corner. The governor's palace is more than a building. It is a testament to human creativity, observation, and the desire to embed meaning into the material world. And yet, despite centuries of study, its secrets remain tantalizingly out of reach. Standing before the palace, one cannot help but reflect on the layers of knowledge, labor, and belief embedded in every stone. How much of Uxmal's wisdom was encoded in architecture rather than text? How did its inhabitants perceive the interplay of light, shadow, ritual, and political authority? And what truths, still hidden within the palace or beneath the surrounding landscape, might reshape our understanding of a civilization that continues to challenge modern imagination? The governor's palace, in its enduring grandeur, invites us to ponder not only the achievements of the Maya, but also the broader question that connects all ancient mysteries. How does human ingenuity manifest across time and space, and what remains hidden in the silent, enduring monuments of our past? In the quiet spaces between stone, shadow, and sky, the palace whispers questions that remain unanswered, reminding us that the past is rarely fully revealed, and that every ancient monument holds stories yet to be discovered. Leaving behind the sun-drenched facades of Uxmal, where the interplay of stone, shadow, and ritual left us questioning the ingenuity of the Maya, we crossed the Atlantic to the windswept coastlines of Brittany in northwestern France. Here, amid rolling pastures and the rugged edges of the Atlantic, lies one of Europe's most enigmatic and imposing prehistoric monuments, the Locmariaquer Grand Menhir base. Unlike the carefully constructed palaces and ceremonial platforms of Mesoamerica, this monument speaks a different language, one of raw stone, monumental scale, and a silence that has endured for millennia. Even in its broken state, it exudes a presence that is impossible to ignore. Approaching the site, the first impression is one of staggering scale. The Grand Menhir, now lying in fragments upon the earth, was once a single monolithic stone, estimated to have reached over 20 meters in length and weighing close to 330 tons. Its colossal size dwarfs the surrounding landscape, and the sheer effort required to extract, transport, and erect such a stone in the Neolithic era, around 4500 BC, defies simple explanation. How did early communities, without the advantage of wheeled vehicles or metal tools, manipulate such enormous masses with apparent precision? The answer remains elusive, leaving open the tantalizing possibility that these people possessed knowledge or techniques now lost to history. The menhir's base, carved directly into the granite outcrop, is equally captivating. Deep, expertly fashioned sockets indicate that the stone was anchored with intention, suggesting it once stood upright in alignment with other monuments and possibly celestial markers. Surrounding the site are traces of what archaeologists interpret as ceremonial avenues, smaller standing stones, and burial mounds, hinting at a complex ritual landscape. Why, then, was this extraordinary monolith toppled? Or did it collapse naturally over time? Was it a victim of deliberate human intervention, an act of ritual closure, or the slow, inexorable hand of natural erosion? The answer remains one of the enduring mysteries of Locmariaquer. Archaeological study has revealed faint carvings along the stone's surface, abstract shapes, cut marks, and linear grooves whose purpose is not entirely clear. Were these markings purely decorative, symbolic, or did they serve a functional purpose, perhaps related to ritual or astronomy? Some researchers suggest that the grooves may have aided in the transport of the stone, reducing friction as it was moved over logs or sleds. Others propose that the carvings encode symbolic information, perhaps linked to religious belief, community identity, or astronomical observation. If so, what knowledge was encoded here, and how did the Neolithic communities interpret it? The broader landscape surrounding Locmariaquer adds further layers to the mystery. The site is part of a dense concentration of megalithic monuments in Brittany, including dolmens, alignments, and other menhirs, forming one of Europe's most remarkable prehistoric networks. Could the Grand Menhir have served as the centerpiece of this ritualized terrain, functioning as both a landmark and a spiritual focal point? Its scale suggests that it held extraordinary significance, commanding attention across long distances. Did it mark a sacred axis, connect mortals to the cosmos, or serve as a boundary between the physical and spiritual realms? Dating the Grand Menhir and its associated structures relies primarily on typological comparisons and radiocarbon analysis from nearby sites. The evidence suggests that it was part of an ambitious phase of megalithic construction that spanned several centuries, from roughly 4,700 to 4,200 BC. During this time, communities in Brittany displayed remarkable organizational skills, coordinating labor and resources on a scale that would challenge even modern expectations of small, pre-literate societies. How did they achieve this level of cooperation, and what motivated them to invest so much effort into monuments whose primary function may have been symbolic or spiritual rather than practical? Transporting a stone of this magnitude would have been a monumental task. The granite quarries are located several kilometers from the erection site, yet the menhir was moved with precision, its orientation deliberately chosen. Could it be that early engineers understood principles of leverage, friction, and incline that we underestimate today? Some fringe theories have speculated that these techniques may have involved ritualized processes, special lubricants, or even lost technologies, but without definitive evidence, we are left to marvel at the ingenuity that must have been required. The orientation of the menhir, when reconstructed, raises even more profound questions. Certain alignments suggest connections to solar events, particularly solstices, while others may mark lunar cycles or even stellar configurations. Did the Neolithic builders possess a sophisticated observational knowledge of the heavens, embedding this knowledge in stone to record, commemorate, or guide communal life? If so, what did they understand about the movements of celestial bodies, and how did this knowledge shape their culture, rituals, and social organization? Despite the passage of nearly 7 millennia, the Grand Menhir continues to challenge assumptions about prehistoric life. Its fragmentary state offers tantalizing clues, yet many details remain shrouded in ambiguity. Were there rituals performed at its base? Did it serve as a tomb, a territorial marker, or a spiritual conduit? Some archaeologists suggest that its collapse may have been intentional, part of a ritual act signaling the end of its use or the transformation of the sacred landscape. Others believe natural forces, erosion, frost, and geological pressure were solely responsible, leaving the original purpose of the monument open to interpretation. Artifacts recovered in the vicinity include flint tools, pottery shards, and scattered ceremonial items, yet none provide a definitive explanation for the menhir itself. The lack of inscriptions, written records, or consistent symbolism challenges modern understanding. How do we interpret monuments that predate written language by millennia? Can stone alone convey the depth of ritual significance and social meaning that its builders intended? And how many of these meanings have been lost forever, buried beneath centuries of sediment and time? The scale and ambition of the Locmariaquer complex invite reflection on human perception and intention. How did small, Neolithic communities mobilize hundreds of individuals to undertake such laborious projects? What was the social or spiritual imperative that justified such extraordinary effort? Could these constructions reflect not merely technical skill, but an early understanding of social cohesion, identity, and collective memory, an effort to leave an enduring imprint on both the landscape and human consciousness? Even the broken menhir conveys a profound sense of awe. Its immense weight, its deliberate placement, and the traces of ritual labor speak to a worldview in which the material and spiritual were intertwined. Walking along its fractured base, one can imagine the rhythm of Neolithic life: communal gatherings, ceremonial chants, and coordinated efforts to erect a monument that would endure beyond individual lifetimes. Yet much of this vision remains speculative, reconstructed only through careful observation and imaginative empathy. In the quiet of the Breton coast, as wind sweeps across pastures dotted with standing stones, one senses the persistence of mystery. The Grand Menhir base is more than a relic. It is a monument to ambition, ingenuity, and belief. Its scale forces the modern observer to confront the capabilities of societies we often assume were simple or primitive. And yet, despite centuries of archaeological study, its full story remains tantalizingly incomplete. Standing before the fractured stone, one is struck by the paradox of megalithic monuments. They are both enduring and elusive, monumental and silent. How much knowledge, skill, and ritual understanding is encoded within their weight, placement, and orientation? And what remains hidden beneath the surface? Buried fragments, unexcavated foundations, or symbolic meanings that escape modern interpretation? The Locmariaquer Grand Menhir base challenges our assumptions about the prehistoric past. It invites us to consider the ambitions, beliefs, and technical achievements of communities separated from us by thousands of years. In its fragments lie echoes of human ingenuity, spiritual practice, and collective endeavor that continue to provoke wonder. As the Atlantic wind carries whispers across the landscape, it seems to ask, what other secrets lie buried in the earth, waiting for those willing to see beyond the stones themselves? Here, at the edge of the ancient world and the modern imagination, the grand Menhir base remains both a monument and a question. Its broken yet majestic form reminds us that the past is rarely complete, that human ambition often outstrips the limits of our understanding, and that every stone may hold stories and knowledge we are only beginning to perceive. What lies beneath the shattered granite, hidden by time and sand? And how might future generations decipher the silent messages embedded within this colossal Neolithic testament? As the Atlantic winds still echo across the broken stones of Brittany, carrying with them the whispers of Neolithic labor and ritual, we turn our gaze northward to the rugged, windswept landscapes of the Outer Hebrides in Scotland. Here, perched on a gentle rise overlooking the Atlantic, stands Dun Carloway, a broch whose weathered stones rise like a sentinel from the heather-covered ground. Unlike the monumental menhirs of Brittany, Dun Carloway is a circular stone tower, its massive walls enclosing a space that once balanced daily life, defense, and perhaps ritual in equal measure. Even in its partially ruined state, the broch exudes an aura of mystery, its silhouette blending seamlessly with the moody sky and rugged terrain, inviting questions about the people who built it and the purposes it served. From a distance, the broch's cylindrical shape is immediately striking. Its outer walls, over 5 meters thick at the base, taper subtly as they ascend, creating an impression of both strength and elegance. The stones, fitted with remarkable precision without mortar, testify to a mastery of construction techniques that still impress modern architects and engineers. Entering the interior, one is struck by the narrow, winding passages, the inset chambers, and the sophisticated corbelled galleries that rise within the wall itself. How did Iron Age builders, roughly dating from 100 BC to 100 AD, conceive such complex structures, and what drove them to invest so much labor into a single tower? Dun Carloway's location adds another layer of intrigue. Situated on a small promontory, the broch commands panoramic views of surrounding fields, small lochs, and the distant sea. Its placement suggests strategic considerations, perhaps for defense against rival clans or invaders. But the design also indicates careful attention to environmental conditions. Natural light filters through narrow doorways and small windows, illuminating interior spaces in ways that seem deliberate rather than incidental. Could these design choices reflect practical necessities, symbolic intent, or both? Was the broch a home, a fortress, a ceremonial center, or a combination of all three? The internal features of Dun Carloway deepen the mystery. Inset stone benches, hearths, and storage niches indicate domestic life, yet the presence of thick walls, elevated galleries, and hidden passages suggest defensive functions. How did the inhabitants balance these dual purposes? Were these brochs primarily symbols of power and status, a statement of dominance visible across the landscape, or functional strongholds designed to protect communities in times of strife? The evidence seems to suggest both, but certainty eludes modern understanding. The sheer scale and precision of the broch's stonework raise questions about the tools and techniques used. Without metal reinforcement, builders achieved a stability that has allowed the structure to endure for over 2 millennia. Did they employ lost methods of levering, counterweighting, or jointing that modern archaeologists have yet to fully comprehend? Some theories suggest that the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of weight distribution and material properties, knowledge passed down through generations but never recorded in writing. Could such mastery hint at a broader technical and intellectual tradition in the Iron Age, now largely lost to time? Excavations at Carloway have revealed artifacts that shed light on daily life but leave many questions unanswered. Iron tools, pottery shards, and remnants of textiles suggest a community engaged in farming, weaving, and domestic trade. Animal bones indicate the consumption of cattle, sheep, and fish, and evidence of hearths and storage pits points to careful planning and resource management. Yet these items do not fully explain why such monumental effort was invested in the broch itself. Was it built as a statement of communal achievement, a defensive stronghold, or a symbolic structure that connected the people with their environment and their cosmology? The strategic positioning of Carloway also raises intriguing questions about communication and social networks in the Outer Hebrides. Brochs are often located within sight of one another, suggesting a network of visual signals or lines of influence. Could the builders have used these towers to send messages across the rugged landscape, perhaps to coordinate defense, trade, or ceremonial events? And if so, how did this early form of long-distance communication shape the social and political organization of the communities inhabiting these islands? Architectural features within the broch continue to perplex scholars. The corbelled galleries within the walls, creating small, enclosed passageways, indicate an advanced understanding of stability and load distribution. Narrow staircases, cleverly hidden within the wall, allowed access to higher levels and possibly served defensive purposes. Yet the exact use of these spaces remains speculative. Were they primarily functional, providing living space, storage, or access to vantage points? Or did they have symbolic significance, representing thresholds, protection, or connection to spiritual realms? Even the broch's collapse over time offers a story of human interaction and natural forces. Evidence suggests that stones were removed, repurposed for later buildings, or displaced by the relentless wind and rain of the Atlantic. This partial destruction adds to the mystery. Which parts of Carloway were originally intended for habitation, defense, or ritual, and which are the result of centuries of modification and adaptation? How much of its original form and its original purpose has been obscured by the passage of time? The surrounding landscape contributes to the enigmatic aura of the broch. Small field systems, cairns, and burial mounds dot the area, forming a complex pattern that hints at an integrated relationship between everyday life, ritual, and territorial control. Could Carloway have been the focal point of these networks, anchoring social and spiritual life in a physical, highly visible form? And if so, what rituals, ceremonies, or communal gatherings might have taken place within its stone walls, beneath its galleries, or atop its vantage points? The question of human intention lingers in every aspect of Carloway. Its builders demonstrated both ambition and ingenuity, creating a monument that is simultaneously utilitarian and symbolic. Was it designed to convey power, protect inhabitants, or facilitate ritual and social cohesion? Perhaps all these purposes coexisted, layered into a single architectural expression of Iron Age life. And yet, despite extensive study, many details remain frustratingly beyond our reach, leaving the broch as both a window into the past and a puzzle that refuses to be fully solved. Artifacts recovered from the interior and surrounding areas provide tantalizing hints. Flint tools, ceramic fragments, and animal remains suggest practical, everyday activities, yet the sheer scale of the broch implies a purpose beyond the merely utilitarian. Could the construction of Carloway itself have been a ritual act, a demonstration of communal strength, or a symbolic gesture intended to communicate status and influence across the rugged Hebridean landscape? And if so, how did the builders balance the mundane and the monumental in their daily lives? The enduring mystery of Carloway is amplified by the silence of the Outer Hebrides. The wind sweeps across the stone, the ocean crashes in the distance, and the heather rustles underfoot, yet the broch does not yield its full story. What drove a small, isolated community to undertake such a remarkable architectural feat? What knowledge of materials, geometry, and communal organization allowed them to construct a tower that has endured for over 2,000 years? And most compellingly, what did Dun Carloway mean to the people who built it, lived within it, and perhaps even ritualized their lives around its presence? Walking through the Broch today, one cannot help but imagine the rhythms of Iron Age life, the coordinated labor of hauling and placing stones, the domestic routines carried out within its walls, the watchful eyes scanning the horizon for friend or foe, and the quiet moments of reflection or ritual that must have taken place in this imposing yet intimate structure. Every stone, every gallery, and every threshold hints at a level of sophistication, social complexity, and symbolic intention that challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric communities. Even in its partial ruin, Dun Carloway conveys a sense of permanence and purpose. The Broch is more than a defensive tower or a dwelling. It is a monument to human ingenuity, a testament to the ability of early societies to transform raw stone into architecture imbued with meaning. And yet, despite centuries of study and observation, much of its story remains unspoken, hidden in the corbelled galleries, within the thick walls, and in the surrounding landscape. Standing at Dun Carloway, one is reminded that the past often resists definitive interpretation. Every architectural decision, every artifact, every subtle feature raises questions about intention, skill, and cultural expression. How much of this knowledge has been lost? How many rituals, traditions, and social structures are encoded in stone, only partially decipherable by modern eyes? And as we consider these questions, the Broch challenges us to imagine the full breadth of human capability, curiosity, and creativity in the distant past. From the rugged coastlines of the Outer Hebrides, where Dun Carloway's weathered stones still gaze across the Atlantic, our journey turns to the lush, rolling hills of Ireland, where the Brownshill Dolmen rises with an almost otherworldly presence. Set amid the green pastures of County Carlow, this ancient megalithic tomb commands the landscape, its massive capstone, believed to weigh over 100 metric tons, resting precariously atop slender support stones, as if frozen in a moment of monumental balance. There is a quiet awe here, the kind that fills the air around structures deliberately built to endure millennia, their purpose still partially obscured by the passage of time. Approaching the dolmen, one cannot ignore the sheer scale of the capstone. Its massive weight defies intuitive understanding, prompting immediate questions. How did Neolithic people, without cranes, pulleys, or iron tools, lift and position such an enormous stone with precision? Even the most careful measurement cannot fully convey the ingenuity required. Was it purely functional, a grave marker, or a ceremonial symbol intended to convey power, permanence, and reverence to those who came after? And how did its builders manage the logistics, from quarrying to transportation to final placement, in a period when human labor was the only tool available? The Brownshill Dolmen belongs to a wider tradition of portal tombs, structures scattered across the Irish landscape, dating from around 4000 BC. These tombs were central to the early Neolithic communities, serving both as burial places and perhaps as sites of ritual activity. Excavations in similar sites reveal human remains, pottery fragments, and stone tools, yet each dolmen maintains its individual mysteries. Brownshill stands apart not just for its size, but for the unusual perfection with which its capstone is balanced. It seems to hover with a defiance of gravity, casting shadows and framing the sky above in a way that suggests a symbolic or astronomical intention. Could the builders have been aligning the tomb to celestial events, perhaps solstices or equinoxes, as part of their spiritual observances? Or is this an example of architectural intuition surpassing modern expectation? The surrounding landscape further complicates our understanding. The dolmen rests on slightly elevated ground, overlooking fertile fields and small streams, integrating naturally into its environment while asserting its presence. The location may have been chosen for visibility, spiritual significance, or proximity to the settlements of its builders. But what exactly guided this choice? Did the Neolithic people perceive the landscape differently, with sightlines, natural features, and seasonal changes carrying symbolic or practical meaning lost to modern eyes? Could the dolmen have served as a territorial marker, a social gathering point, or even a conduit to the spiritual world? Its interior, accessible only by stooping beneath the capstone, offers further contemplation. Though the chamber itself is modest compared to the massive roof stone, the effect is dramatic. One enters a confined, shadowed space, hemmed in by carefully positioned orthostats, the roof pressing silently above. Archaeologists suggest that human remains might have been placed within, yet evidence is often fragmentary. What rituals accompanied these burials? Were the dead honored in repeated ceremonies, or was the dolmen a final resting place marked with permanence rather than regular visitation? The dolmen's silent chamber encourages reflection on the lives, beliefs, and fears of the people who constructed it, reminding us that stone, while enduring, cannot fully reveal intention. The mechanics of the dolmen continue to intrigue. The support stones, seemingly delicate beneath the massive capstone, are arranged in a configuration that has resisted collapse for thousands of years. Scholars debate whether this was deliberate knowledge of load distribution or a process of trial and error perfected over generations. The weight, placement, and proportion all hint at an understanding of physics remarkably sophisticated for a society without written mathematics. Could these builders have shared a form of technical knowledge now lost? And if so, what other constructions, now vanished or unrecognized, might once have demonstrated similar mastery? While some explanations remain firmly rooted in the practical, burial, territorial demarcation, ritual observances, others wander into speculation. Some researchers have posited that the dolmen may have served as a solar observatory or calendar, oriented to track celestial movements. Others suggest that such tombs marked not just the resting places of the dead, but thresholds between worlds, sites where the living might communicate with ancestors or deities. These interpretations, while speculative, draw attention to the possibility that Neolithic communities possessed a complex cosmology, intertwining observation of the natural world with spiritual practice. Could the enormous capstone itself have been perceived as a symbolic link between earth and sky, human and divine? Evidence from surrounding excavations offers tantalizing yet incomplete clues. Flint tools, pottery shards, and the occasional ornament suggest that these communities were sophisticated, with craft, trade, and ritual intertwined in daily life. Yet nothing fully explains the scale and precision of Brownshill's capstone. Were hundreds of people involved in its construction, laboring together in coordinated effort over months or even years? Did the process itself carry ceremonial significance, a communal act of devotion as much as engineering? And what might have been the social or spiritual hierarchy guiding such an endeavor? The interplay of scale, precision, and placement lends the dolmen a timeless quality. Standing beneath its capstone, one is acutely aware of human ambition and persistence, generations reaching across centuries to leave a mark on the landscape. The Neolithic builders of Brownshill Dolmen were people profoundly connected to their environment, capable of transforming stone into architecture that simultaneously honors the dead, signals social power, and gestures toward the cosmos. Yet, despite all study and scrutiny, the site resists full understanding. Its secrets remain partly concealed, resting in the stone, the surrounding earth, and the imagination of those who look upon it today. Questions of orientation, design, and purpose invite reflection. Was the dolmen aligned intentionally with celestial events, marking solstices or lunar cycles? Did the choice of capstone, so massive yet so delicately balanced, serve as a demonstration of communal achievement or as a symbolic link between heaven and earth? How did such knowledge, whether technical, ritualistic, or both, pass from one generation to the next in a pre-literate society? And perhaps most intriguingly, what does the dolmen's enduring presence tell us about the values, fears, and aspirations of the people who built it? The broader context of Irish megaliths adds another layer of mystery. Brownshill is part of a network of portal tombs, dolmens, and burial mounds scattered across the landscape, each with variations in design, orientation, and scale. What patterns governed their construction? Were they part of interconnected communities, sharing ritual practices and technical knowledge, or did each dolmen emerge independently, guided by local custom and environmental opportunity? The very differences between sites hint at a richness of cultural expression, a diversity of spiritual and practical considerations now largely obscured. Even in ruin, the dolmen maintains a sense of purpose. Its capstone rests in silent defiance of time, the supporting orthostats like faithful sentinels, holding the weight of history above a shadowed chamber. Visitors cannot help but ponder the hands that worked these stones, the ingenuity required, and the vision that imagined such a structure in the first place. Brownshill Dolmen is both monument and enigma, standing as a testament to human ambition, skill, and mystery. In the quiet fields of County Carlow, the dolmen seems almost alive, as though it were breathing the stories of those who built it, watched over it, and were laid within its stone embrace. Its secrets are partially revealed through archaeology, yet much remains beyond reach. The exact methods of construction, the full range of ceremonial significance, the beliefs encoded in its alignment and scale. And so, as we stand beneath its massive capstone, we are invited to wonder, to reflect, and to acknowledge that, in some respects, the mysteries of Brownshill Dolmen remain untouched, waiting for future generations to unravel them, or simply to marvel at their audacity and beauty. Here, stone, sky, and landscape converge in a moment of enduring human ambition, leaving us to question not only how such structures were built, but why. Were they monuments to the dead, symbols of communal identity, or expressions of cosmic understanding? Perhaps they were all of these things, layered upon one another, creating a legacy that is as compelling today as it was thousands of years ago. And in that enduring tension between what we can know and what remains hidden, Brownshill Dolmen stands as a silent witness to the ingenuity, spirituality, and mystery of our ancestors. From the rolling emerald fields of Ireland, where the massive capstone of Brownshill Dolmen leaves an indelible impression of human ingenuity, we shift now to a landscape markedly different, yet equally enigmatic. On the western fringes of Sardinia, Italy, rises Monte Baranta, a rocky promontory shrouded in mist and mystery. Its jagged cliffs and sparse vegetation conceal traces of human activity that date back thousands of years, yet the mountain's true secrets remain elusive, cloaked in both time and legend. Unlike the well-known dolmens of Ireland, Monte Baranta is less immediately imposing in scale, but its significance, both archaeological and cultural, resonates through layers of history and folklore. Approaching the site, one is struck by the mountain's sheer verticality and the precision with which ancient builders seem to manipulate its natural contours. Carved into the stone are structures that hint at defensive purposes. Terraces, walls, and platforms suggest a community intent on utilizing every feature of the landscape. Yet, despite extensive study, archaeologists struggle to determine whether these constructions served practical, ceremonial, or symbolic roles, or some combination of all three. How did people of the Bronze Age, without modern machinery, sculpt terraces into the rocky slope? And what motivated them to select this particular location, where the mountain's ruggedness offers both protection and isolation? Monte Baranta is part of the broader Nuragic civilization, which flourished in Sardinia between roughly 1800 BC and 238 BC. The Nuragic people left behind thousands of stone towers, settlements, and tombs scattered across the island, each site a testament to sophisticated engineering and communal organization. Among these, Monte Baranta stands out not only for its strategic location, but also for its peculiar architectural choices. Terraces are cut with sharp angles that suggest careful planning rather than mere adaptation to natural slopes, while large boulders seem to have been moved or altered to form defensive barriers. What techniques allowed such precision in an age without levers, cranes, or wheeled transport? And were these constructions primarily functional, or did they hold ritual significance as well? The terraces themselves are remarkable. From a distance, they appear to follow the contours of the mountain almost organically, yet a closer inspection reveals deliberate alignment. Could these terraces have been designed to manipulate water flow for irrigation, or were they platforms for ceremonial gatherings, providing views of the surrounding valleys and coastlines that carried symbolic meaning? Some scholars speculate that Monte Baranta may have served as a dual-purpose site, defensive in times of conflict, sacred in times of ritual. If so, it suggests a society in which practical engineering and spiritual practice were intertwined, each informing the other. Evidence of habitation is equally tantalizing. Pottery fragments, stone tools, and remnants of dwellings indicate that people lived, worked, and perhaps worshipped on the slopes. Yet the scarcity of organic remains leaves many questions unanswered. How large was the population, and what social structures governed it? Did the mountain house a single community, or was it a seasonal or ceremonial site used intermittently by dispersed groups? The ambiguity deepens when we consider the mountain's location relative to other Nuragic settlements. It is visible from several contemporary sites, hinting at possible lines of communication or territorial markers, yet no definitive records exist to explain the nature of these connections. Among the more mysterious elements of Monte Baranta are the so-called giant stone platforms perched on the summit. These enormous slabs, sometimes weighing tens of tons, appear deliberately placed in locations that maximize visibility across the surrounding landscape. Scholars debate their purpose. Some suggest they were altars or ceremonial stages. Others propose astronomical significance, aligning with solstices or other celestial events. Could these stones have marked sacred geography, forming a spiritual network across the island? Or were they more practical, signaling territory, warning of approaching outsiders, or serving as reference points for navigation? The truth may be a complex combination of these possibilities, blending utility with ritual, observation with devotion. Monte Baranta's position also raises questions about accessibility. The steep slopes, uneven terrain, and sheer cliffs would have made ascent difficult, particularly when transporting large stones. Why choose such an isolated, challenging site for construction and habitation? Was the difficulty of access part of its purpose, perhaps serving as a protective measure or as a symbolic journey, a passage that separated the mundane from the sacred? Modern hikers can traverse the site with care, but imagining Bronze Age communities hauling materials and establishing terraces invites awe at their determination and ingenuity. The relationship between the mountain's natural features and human modification is another layer of intrigue. Some terraces follow natural ridges almost perfectly, while other features appear almost impossibly precise, suggesting a combination of environmental adaptation and deliberate engineering. Did the Nuragic builders see the mountain itself as a canvas, blending construction seamlessly with topography? And if so, what cultural or spiritual imperatives guided these choices? The evidence hints at a worldview in which humans and landscape were intimately connected, each informing the other in both practical and symbolic dimensions. Beyond the terraces and platforms, scattered across Monte Baranta are tombs carved directly into the rock. These hypogea, or subterranean burial chambers, indicate that the mountain was not only a place of habitation and defense, but also of ritualized death. Artifacts within these tombs, pottery, tools, and occasionally ornaments, suggest complex burial practices. Yet the tomb's precise orientation and location remain mysterious. Were they aligned with natural features, celestial patterns, or sacred pathways known only to the builders? And what can the placement of the dead tell us about the spiritual life of these ancient communities, their understanding of the afterlife, and the values they sought to immortalize in stone? Speculative interpretations naturally emerge from these mysteries. Some researchers have proposed that Monte Baranta may have functioned as a regional ceremonial center, linking multiple neuralgic communities through shared ritual. Others suggest it may have served as an observatory or timekeeping site, though evidence for systematic astronomical alignment is inconclusive. Could it have been a symbolic representation of the cosmos, the mountain itself a sacred axis connecting earth, sky, and ancestral spirits? Or are these interpretations projecting modern assumptions onto a past that we can only partially comprehend? The mountain retains its silence, its stone terraces and platforms offering no definitive answers, only questions that stretch across centuries. The scale and precision of Monte Baranta's constructions also invite comparisons to other enigmatic sites across Europe. Like the dolmens of Ireland or the megalithic temples of Malta, Monte Baranta demonstrates that Bronze Age communities were capable of extraordinary engineering feats. Yet unlike some more famous megalithic complexes, its function remains elusive, and its connections to broader neuralgic culture are only partially understood. Was it a localized expression of broader religious beliefs, or did it hold a unique significance within the region? And how did such knowledge, construction techniques, ceremonial practice, territorial management, pass from generation to generation in a society without written records? As we explore Monte Baranta today, the interplay of natural and human-made features evokes a profound sense of continuity. The terraces, tombs, and platforms testify to human ambition, ingenuity, and spiritual aspiration. Yet despite meticulous study, the mountain retains its mystery, leaving us to contemplate what has been lost to time. What voices of the past echo in the terraces and chambers? What beliefs shaped these constructions, and how did they inform the lives of the people who inhabited this rugged landscape? Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Monte Baranta is the tension between evidence and imagination. Archaeology provides fragments, stone terraces, burial chambers, pottery shards, but leaves the fuller story incomplete. How did these communities organize labor, transport massive stones, and conceptualize space in a way that integrated daily life, ritual, and territorial control? Were there spiritual or cosmological principles encoded in the very layout of terraces and platforms? The mountain invites us to ask not only how it was constructed, but why. What drove humans to transform the natural landscape into something both practical and transcendent? The site also offers reflection on human interaction with landscape across millennia. From a distance, Monte Baranta rises like a natural sentinel, its contours softened by wind and vegetation. Yet upon closer inspection, the marks of human hands are unmistakable. Every terrace, wall, and platform represents both ambition and adaptation, the meeting of intellect, labor, and spirituality. And as the centuries have passed, natural forces and human curiosity alike have tested the durability of these constructions, leaving us with both tangible evidence and enduring uncertainty. Standing amid terraces and stone platforms, one feels the layered presence of time. The builders, the inhabitants, the ceremonies, the burials, and the countless moments that unfolded on this mountain, now invisible to the eye. Monte Baranta remains, in essence, a monument to human persistence and imagination, a place where engineering meets ritual, where labor intersects with belief. Yet it continues to withhold full understanding, a silent guardian of questions that persist across millennia. What remains most remarkable is that despite the gaps in our knowledge, Monte Baranta still communicates something profound. Its terraces suggest order, its platforms indicate intentionality, and its tombs speak of reverence for the dead. Yet the precise nature of these communications, ritualistic, astronomical, territorial, or symbolic, remains tantalizingly elusive. And in that elusiveness lies the enduring fascination. Monte Baranta does not simply tell a story of the past. It invites reflection, curiosity, and wonder, asking us to consider not only the capabilities of our ancestors, but also the mysteries that continue to shape our understanding of human history. Following our exploration of Monte Baranta, where terraces, platforms, and tombs whisper secrets of the Nuragic civilization, we now turn our attention northward, across the waters to Wales, to a site that carries its own enigmatic presence, Pentre Ifan. Nestled atop a gentle hill in the rolling landscape of Pembrokeshire, this megalithic monument commands the surrounding countryside, its massive capstone balanced precariously on slender supporting stones. The sight is immediately arresting. A single slab, estimated at over 16 tons, appears to float in defiance of gravity, forming a tomb whose origins date back to around 3,500 BC. As we approach, the wind sweeping across the grassy slopes adds an ethereal quality, heightening the monument's aura of mystery. Unlike Monte Baranta, Pentre Ifan is a single, focused construction rather than a sprawling complex, yet its impact is no less profound. Its simplicity is deceptive, for the very placement of the stones suggests a sophisticated understanding of both geometry and landscape. How did Neolithic builders, without metal tools or modern machinery, transport and elevate a slab of such enormity with such precision? Was it sheer manpower, ingenious levering techniques, or knowledge we no longer possess? Pentre Ifan is classified as a passage tomb, though its interior chamber is largely obscured by the massive capstone and supporting stones. Excavations in the area have uncovered remnants of flint tools, pottery fragments, and evidence of ritual activity. Yet the exact purpose of the site remains speculative. Was it strictly funerary, a resting place for important individuals, or did it serve broader ceremonial or astronomical functions? The alignment of the monument raises tantalizing possibilities. Some researchers suggest it may correspond with solstice sunrises or sunsets, though evidence is circumstantial. Did the builders imbue the landscape itself with meaning, orchestrating rituals that connected earth, sky, and human existence in ways we are only beginning to grasp? The scale of the capstone and the engineering required to place it atop supporting stones is remarkable. One cannot help but ponder the social organization that must have existed to accomplish such a feat. Tens, perhaps hundreds of individuals would have needed to coordinate labor, transport, and placement over days or weeks. This raises broader questions about Neolithic society in Wales. How were these communities structured, and what social or spiritual imperatives drove them to undertake such monumental tasks? Was it devotion, social cohesion, or a combination of both that motivated the labor necessary to erect Pentre Ifan? Its placement is equally deliberate. Perched on a hill, the tomb commands views of the surrounding valleys, and its visibility would have been unmistakable to contemporaneous communities. This raises intriguing questions about its function within the wider Neolithic landscape. Was Pentre Ifan a solitary monument, or part of a network of megalithic sites, each marking sacred ground, celestial events, or territorial claims? And if so, what did these alignments signify to those who built them? Practical markers for navigation, symbols of power, or perhaps gateways to the spiritual realm? The passage tomb's construction also reflects a striking relationship with natural forces. The capstone, balanced with apparent ease, suggests an intimate understanding of weight distribution, leverage, and structural integrity. It evokes questions about Neolithic knowledge that remains difficult to reconstruct. Did these builders possess an empirical understanding passed down orally, refined over generations, or did they rely on intuition honed through experience? And what might have been lost to time, leaving us only with the silent stones as evidence of their achievements? Within the tomb, traces of cremated remains have been discovered, hinting at the rituals surrounding death. Yet these remnants are sparse, leaving uncertainty about the scale and nature of burials at the site. Was Pentre Ifan reserved for a select few, or did it serve a broader communal function? And how might the spiritual beliefs of its builders have influenced both the construction and the ceremonial use of the tomb? Archaeologists have speculated that the monument was designed to bridge the worlds of the living and the dead, a locus where memory, reverence, and cosmic observation intersected. The monument's enduring mystery extends to its design. The capstone's flat underside rests neatly on the supporting stones, yet its top surface is irregular, shaped perhaps by natural fracture or by human hands. Some researchers have suggested that the placement of the stones might encode symbolic or cosmological information. Could the tomb itself have been a map of the heavens, a terrestrial representation of celestial order? And if so, what did this alignment convey to those who approached it for ritual or reflection? Pentre Ifan also invites contemplation of scale and perception. Viewed from a distance, it appears almost impossibly delicate, a slender monument carrying a massive weight. Up close, the precision of placement and the subtle manipulation of natural stone command awe. It demonstrates that Neolithic people were not merely functional builders. They were artists, engineers, and possibly spiritual guides, shaping the landscape to reflect both worldly needs and metaphysical concepts. How much of this knowledge was deliberately encoded in stone, and how much arose through trial, observation, and experience? Speculative interpretations naturally emerge when confronting such an enigmatic site. Some propose that Pentre Ifan was a regional ceremonial center, its elevated location designed to connect communities in ritual observance. Others see astronomical or calendrical functions embedded in its alignment, hinting at a sophisticated understanding of solar cycles and seasonal change. Could it have been a marker of time, a sacred observatory, or a spiritual bridge between human life and cosmic order? Perhaps it was all of these things simultaneously, its significance layered and multidimensional, accessible in part to those who participated in its construction and rituals. Pentre Ifan's comparison with other European megalithic sites deepens the intrigue. Like Monte Baranta in Sardinia or Brownshill Dolmen in Ireland, it reflects remarkable engineering and social coordination. Yet each site carries its own regional character, responding to local geology, climate, and cultural tradition. Why did communities in different regions adopt similar architectural principles, and what does this suggest about communication or parallel development among prehistoric societies? Was there a shared understanding of ritual and monumental construction across Western Europe? Or did similar solutions emerge independently in response to comparable challenges and aspirations? The surrounding landscape also contributes to the monument's enigma. Gentle hills and distant valleys provide context and contrast, emphasizing Pentre Ifan's prominence while integrating it seamlessly into its environment. Did the builders select this location for practical visibility, spiritual resonance, or a combination of both? And how did the natural features, rock outcrops, streams, or vegetation, interact with human construction to create a landscape imbued with meaning, ritual, and memory? Despite centuries of study, Pentre Ifan continues to resist definitive interpretation. Its stones speak to the ingenuity, ambition, and spiritual sensibilities of a people whose written records are lost to time. Yet the monument remains tantalizingly incomplete. Its full purpose, its cultural significance, and the methods of its construction remain partly speculative. How did these ancient communities conceive of their relationship to the earth, to each other, and to forces beyond the visible world? What principles guided them in shaping monumental stone as both shelter for the dead and symbol for the living? As we stand before the capstone today, we are reminded of the dialogue between past and present. Every stone, every carefully balanced element, invites reflection on human capability, ingenuity, and imagination. The monument speaks not only of what was accomplished, but also of what remains beyond our understanding. Its enduring mystery challenges us to question, to wonder, and to consider the countless stories and beliefs that have shaped human experience over millennia. Perhaps what is most striking about Pentre Ifan is its ability to provoke contemplation without providing answers. It reminds us that the Neolithic world, while distant in time, was rich in complexity, belief, and ingenuity. And though we can measure its stones, map its terraces, and analyze its artifacts, the true intentions, thoughts, and rituals of its builders remain largely invisible. This tension between evidence and imagination is precisely what renders the site profoundly compelling. It is a monument that speaks in fragments, leaving us to fill the gaps with inquiry, reflection, and wonder. In the shadow of the enormous capstone, the sense of continuity across time becomes palpable. Here, as in Monte Baranta and other megalithic sites, the human desire to shape the landscape, to commemorate, to bridge the temporal and the eternal, is evident. Yet the answers remain elusive, leaving us with a paradox. These stones testify to remarkable skill and vision, but the full story of their meaning is hidden, waiting perhaps for new discoveries, or for us to imagine possibilities that are as profound as the monument itself. And so, as the wind sweeps across the hilltop and the sun casts shifting shadows across the massive slab, we are left with questions that echo across thousands of years. What guided the builders' hands, minds, and spirits? How did these communities perceive the cosmos, life, and death? And how were these perceptions encoded in stone? And perhaps most intriguingly, what remains hidden, either buried beneath the earth or encoded in knowledge lost to time, waiting for future generations to uncover its secrets? Pentre Ifan, like so many megalithic monuments, does not yield its mysteries easily. It stands as both a testament to human capability and a challenge to our understanding. And as we leave the hilltop, the monument receding behind us, we carry with us the awareness that the past is alive in stone, that human ingenuity and spiritual aspiration have left a mark that transcends millennia, and that the questions these ancient builders posed to the world remain, to this day, unanswered. From the windswept hills of Wales, where Pentre Ifan rises as a silent testament to Neolithic ambition, we journey southward across the Mediterranean to the island of Sardinia, to a site that has intrigued archaeologists and historians for over a century, Monte Baranta. Standing in stark contrast to its natural surroundings, Monte Baranta appears less like a conventional settlement and more like a monumental enigma, a structure both imposing and mysterious, etched into the landscape of the Sassari province. Its very form challenges our understanding of early architectural expression, prompting questions that remain largely unanswered. At first glance, Monte Baranta is reminiscent of a ziggurat, a stepped platform rising in distinct terraces from the earth. Unlike nearby Nuragic structures, which often emphasize circular towers and stone villages, this site presents a rectilinear symmetry, a deliberate layering of stone platforms that culminate in a raised altar-like summit. The base is broad and square, carefully aligned with the surrounding topography, while the upper terraces taper slightly, guiding the eye upward. Though partially reconstructed in the 20th century, the original intent and method of construction remain the subject of debate, sparking speculation about the ingenuity of its builders around 4000 BC. Walking among the terraces, the sense of scale becomes apparent. Each massive stone, expertly placed, conveys both technical skill and symbolic weight. How did Neolithic people, armed with no metal tools or wheeled transport, manipulate stones weighing several tons with such precision? Theories abound. Were ramps employed, or might sophisticated lever systems have been developed and later lost to time? Could this monument represent a previously unknown architectural tradition, a synthesis of ritual, astronomical observation, and social organization? Monte Barranta's construction suggests it served a ceremonial purpose rather than purely domestic. At the summit, archaeologists have identified traces of an altar and evidence of offerings, fragments of pottery, animal bones, and obsidian shards. These findings hint at complex ritual activity, yet the exact nature of these ceremonies eludes certainty. Was Monte Baranta a center for solar or lunar worship, a platform for seasonal rites, or a place where the spiritual and political intersected? Its alignment with cardinal directions hints at a celestial function, perhaps marking solstices or other significant solar events, though definitive proof remains elusive. One of the most striking aspects of Monte Baranta is its relationship to the surrounding landscape. Unlike the solitary dolmens of Wales or the megalithic corridors of Brittany, this site integrates seamlessly with the hills and valleys of northern Sardinia. Its elevated terraces allow observers to see distant horizons, connecting the monument not only to human activity, but also to the rhythms of the natural world. Did the builders intend for this visibility to communicate power or sacredness, or was it part of a more nuanced cosmology, where the land itself was inseparable from spiritual practice? The mystery deepens when considering the scale and uniformity of construction. The terraces are symmetrical, the stone blocks carefully squared and arranged, yet the techniques employed remain largely speculative. Could early Sardinians have possessed geometric or engineering knowledge that has been entirely lost? Some researchers suggest that such precision implies not only practical skill, but a codified system of measurement and planning, hinting at a society capable of complex organization. If so, what social structures supported the creation of a monument of this magnitude, and what hierarchy or ritual authority oversaw its construction? Monte Baranta is often compared to Mesopotamian ziggurats, though it predates many of them by centuries. This raises profound questions about the diffusion of architectural ideas in the ancient world. Was Sardinia an isolated innovator, arriving independently at the stepped platform design, or does Monte Baranta reflect an even broader exchange of knowledge across prehistoric Europe and the Near East? If these ideas were shared, what routes and mechanisms enabled such communication in a time before writing, sailing, or wheeled transport? And if the structure developed independently, what does this say about the universality of certain architectural and ritual solutions in human societies? The monument's ritual use is equally enigmatic. Excavations have revealed evidence of ceremonial fires, sacrificial deposits, and carefully placed artifacts, yet the meaning of these practices remains speculative. Did Monte Baranta serve as a stage for communal rituals, marking seasonal transitions or celestial events? Or was it a site reserved for the elite, a locus of power where leaders performed rites to legitimize authority and connect their people to unseen cosmic forces? Perhaps its significance was multi-purpose, serving both the spiritual and political needs of the community in a landscape alive with ritual resonance. The question of astronomical alignment is particularly compelling. Scholars have noted that Monte Barranta's terraces align roughly with the rising sun at certain points in the year, suggesting an awareness of solar cycles. Could this monument have functioned as an ancient observatory, tracking the movement of the sun and seasons? If so, what knowledge did its builders encode into its very stones? and how did these observations shape their worldview? Unlike modern instruments, Monte offers only subtle hints, leaving interpretation largely to conjecture and comparative study with other ancient sites. Beyond its physical and astronomical mysteries, Monte invites reflection on the human experience in prehistory. To construct such a monument, entire communities would have devoted labor, knowledge, and resources across generations. What motivated them? Was it fear, devotion, ambition, or an innate drive to connect with something larger than themselves? And what did they understand about the forces that govern life, death, and the cosmos? Every terrace, every stone, speaks to an engagement with the sacred and the social that transcends mere functionality. Speculative theories naturally arise. Some suggest Monte could have been a landing platform for celestial events or symbolic representations of cosmic mountains, bridging human and divine realms. Others propose that it functioned as a central hub for ritual feasting, agricultural cycles, or initiation rites, connecting human endeavor with seasonal and spiritual rhythms. Could these ideas coexist, each terrace serving multiple symbolic, practical, and ceremonial purposes simultaneously? The surrounding terrain reinforces the monument's enigmatic character. Rolling hills, distant valleys, and scattered archaeological remains create a setting that is both dramatic and contemplative. Unlike urbanized landscapes, Monte exists in relative isolation, allowing the monument to dominate the horizon and become a focal point for both human and natural activity. Did this setting amplify the spiritual potency of the site, transforming ordinary labor and ritual into acts of profound symbolic resonance? And how might this landscape have shaped the lived experiences and beliefs of those who built and used the terraces? As with many prehistoric sites, much about Monte remains unknown. Its construction defies easy explanation, its ceremonial significance remains partially obscured, and its place within a broader network of Sardinian and Mediterranean ritual landscapes is still being pieced together. Yet the monument's very survival invites inquiry, offering glimpses into a world where human ambition, ingenuity, and spiritual consciousness converged in stone. In reflecting upon Monte we are reminded that the past is not a fixed narrative but a series of questions and possibilities. Each terrace and block invites us to consider what human societies valued, how they conceptualized the sacred, and what knowledge may have been lost across millennia. And while modern archaeology can illuminate technique and context, the deeper symbolic and spiritual dimensions remain tantalizingly elusive. What drove the Neolithic people of Sardinia to shape stone into such bold forms? How did they perceive their relationship with the cosmos, with their communities, and with the natural forces around them? Monte stands, like Pentre Ifan and Monte Baranta before it, as a silent interlocutor between past and present. It challenges us to think beyond contemporary frameworks, to imagine ancient lives and beliefs in all their complexity. And as the sun arcs across the Sardinian sky, casting shadows that shift subtly across the stepped terraces, one is left with the profound sense that this structure is far more than the sum of its stones. It is a question cast into the landscape, waiting for humanity to respond, to wonder, and perhaps to glimpse something of the minds that conceived it. And so, as we leave Monte behind, the terraces receding into the horizon, we carry with us the enduring mystery of human ambition and spiritual inquiry. The site does not give up its secrets easily. Yet in the careful alignment of stones, the monumental engineering, and the silent dialogue with sky and land, we perceive traces of a consciousness attuned to both the material and the metaphysical. What remains hidden, buried beneath time or encoded in the lost traditions of the Neolithic world, continues to invite speculation, reflection, and awe. Here, at the edge of Sardinia, the past is palpable, and yet intentionally incomplete. Monte Baranta is a testament to the complexity of prehistoric societies, to the enduring human desire to shape, to honor, and to understand the cosmos. And though we may never fully unravel its mysteries, the act of inquiry itself becomes a bridge across millennia, connecting our curiosity to the vision of those who first labored to erect terraces that defy both gravity and time. It is this tension between what is known and what is imagined, between the visible stones and the invisible knowledge they once embodied, that renders Monte Baranta profoundly compelling. And as the shadows lengthen over the Sardinian plains, the question lingers. What other secrets lie hidden within the terraces, awaiting discovery or insight? What truths, ritual practices, or cosmic understandings are yet to be uncovered, lying in wait beneath the surface, silent but persistent across the ages? As we leave the enigmatic stone circles of Cempoala, with their silent geometry whispering of ceremonies long forgotten, our journey shifts northward across continents and millennia to the windswept hills of the Argolid in Greece. Here, standing atop a gentle rise near Mycenae, is one of the most imposing and enigmatic monuments of the ancient world, the Beehive tomb of Atreus. Its presence dominates the landscape, a solitary sentinel of history, defying the ages with a combination of architectural mastery and enduring mystery. The sun casts long shadows across its smooth circular mound, highlighting the sheer ambition and meticulous design of a structure built more than 3,200 years ago, around 1250 BC. At first glance, the tomb is simple yet striking. A beehive-shaped tholos, its corbelled dome soaring above the surrounding plain, creating a sense of both awe and foreboding. The entrance, a long dromos carved from stone, stretches toward the tomb like a corridor to the past, a path through which the living once approached the dead, and perhaps through which the spirit world itself was imagined to enter. Standing before it, one is immediately aware of the deliberate scale, the careful arrangement of each stone, and the precise curvature of the dome, achievements that seem almost beyond the technical capabilities of the time. How could a civilization without cranes, pulleys, or advanced machinery erect such a perfectly proportioned, weight-bearing structure? Archaeologists have long studied the tomb, attributing its construction to the Mycenaean civilization, a people whose influence dominated the Greek mainland from roughly 1600 to 1100 BC. The tomb is traditionally associated with Atreus, legendary king of Mycenae and the father of Agamemnon. Yet whether the association is purely mythological or rooted in historical fact remains uncertain. The interior, a hollow dome over 13 meters high, speaks to an astonishing understanding of geometry and construction. Each layer of carefully cut stone was laid inwards in a corbelled pattern, creating a self-supporting vault that has survived millennia, earthquakes, and centuries of human curiosity. The sheer scale of the tomb suggests more than a simple burial. It evokes a culture of power, ritual, and reverence for the dead. Who were the individuals deemed worthy of such a monumental resting place? What ceremonies were performed within its walls? Scholars debate whether the tomb served as a sacred site, a palace for the dead, or a combination of both. Some propose that the tholos shape reflects symbolic cosmology, a miniature mountain connecting the living and the divine. Others speculate that its precise proportions allowed for acoustic properties, voices or chants carrying with surprising clarity from the entrance to the heart of the tomb, intensifying the rituals performed within. Even the entrance is a puzzle. The lintel above the doorway weighs over 120 tons, an engineering feat still difficult to explain. How was such a massive stone lifted into place without machinery? Some fringe theories propose that the Mycenaeans possessed lost techniques, perhaps assisted by sophisticated pulleys or ramps, while others suggest knowledge of weight distribution and leverage far more advanced than commonly assumed. And yet, despite these marvels, there are no contemporary texts detailing the methods of construction, leaving modern observers to imagine the labor, ingenuity, and organization required to achieve this feat. Inside, the tomb is both grand and haunting. The circular chamber, smooth and almost otherworldly, seems to compress time. One can almost hear the echo of footsteps from centuries past, the rustle of garments as mourners or priests conducted rites for the dead. Artifacts recovered from the tomb, golden diadems, ceremonial weapons, and fragments of pottery, hint at a society obsessed with power, hierarchy, and the afterlife. Yet their presence raises questions. Were these offerings meant to honor the dead, appease the gods, or ensure continuity of leadership beyond death? And why, despite the apparent importance of the tomb, was it left largely undisturbed for centuries, untouched by looters until modern archaeology arrived? There are also elements that defy easy explanation. The tomb's alignment with the surrounding landscape, for instance, suggests a deliberate connection with celestial events or topographical markers. Could the entrance have been designed to capture the light of the rising sun on certain days of the year, illuminating the inner chamber in a sacred display? Was the tomb's placement intended to assert dominance over the surrounding plain, signaling both power and divine favor to anyone approaching Mycenae? And what of the myths surrounding Atreus and his family, tales of betrayal, vengeance, and curses? Are these stories merely literary invention, or do they encode real events, perhaps reflecting the social and political tensions of the time? Modern archaeology offers some clues, yet each answer seems to raise new questions. Carbon dating of nearby sites situates the tomb within the peak of Mycenaean influence, but the sophistication of its construction challenges assumptions about the technological capabilities of the era. Comparisons with other Tholos tombs in the region reveal variations in design and scale, suggesting either a rapid evolution of architectural skill or the presence of master builders whose knowledge was closely guarded and lost with time. Could there have been an exchange of ideas across the Mediterranean, linking Mycenae to distant cultures? Or does the tomb represent a unique, isolated achievement, born of necessity, ritual, and ambition? And then there is the symbolic resonance. The very shape of the tomb, a beehive, circular and symmetrical, evokes ideas of continuity, perfection, and eternity. Could this form have held spiritual significance, representing the cycle of life and death, the interconnection of humanity with the cosmos? Within the stones, the echoes of past beliefs linger, yet their precise meaning remains elusive. The tomb stands as both a monument to human ingenuity and a vessel of mystery, challenging us to reconcile technical achievement with spiritual imagination. Walking along the Dromos today, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing in. The surrounding hills are quiet, the wind stirring the grass like whispers from the past. Visitors sense a tangible connection to history, yet the tomb resists full comprehension. Its secrets are partially revealed through measurement, study, and comparison, but fully grasping the worldview that produced such a structure remains just out of reach. How did the Mycenaeans conceive of death and power so intimately intertwined that a single tomb could encapsulate both? How much knowledge has been lost, hidden in myths, or buried beneath layers of soil and stone? And yet, perhaps the greatest mystery is not technical at all, but human. The beehive tomb of Atreus endures as a symbol of ambition, devotion, and cultural memory. It prompts reflection on the continuity of human wonder. Civilizations rise and fall, yet some creations endure, not merely as monuments, but as challenges to the imagination. Each carefully placed stone speaks of labor, vision, and reverence, yet it also provokes questions about the unknown, about ceremonies, beliefs, and skills that have vanished with the hands that shaped them. As the sun dips low over the argolid, the tomb's golden glow softens into shadow. From this distance, its magnitude is apparent, yet its purpose remains tantalizingly elusive. Were the builders guided by divine inspiration, practical necessity, or a mixture of both? And what truths lie hidden in the layers of soil, stone, and myth, waiting for future generations to uncover? The Beehive tomb of Atreus, like the stone circles of Kempoala and the stepped terraces of Monte before it, reminds us that history is not only a record of what we know, but a space for questions that endure, beckoning humanity to continue exploring the mysteries that time itself has left behind. From the monumental presence of the Beehive tomb of Atreus in Greece, with its soaring corbelled dome and labyrinthine dromos, our journey moves westward across Europe, guided by the faint echo of human ambition and ritual. We arrive in the rolling plains of southern Spain, near Trigueros in the province of Huelva, where another enigmatic marvel of prehistoric ingenuity rises subtly from the earth, the Dolmen de Soto. Unlike the imposing silhouette of Atreus, this dolmen nestles quietly within the landscape, its earthen mound and carefully placed stones almost whispering to the past rather than announcing themselves with grandeur. And yet, in its quiet presence, it exudes an undeniable gravitas, as though guarding secrets that have endured for more than 5,000 years. The first impression of the Dolmen de Soto is its sheer geometric precision. From the outside, the mound appears modest, a gentle rise in the terrain, easily overlooked by the unobservant traveler. But as one steps closer, the true complexity begins to reveal itself. The dolmen is part of a larger necropolis, a testament to the spiritual and societal structures of the people who constructed it during the Neolithic period, around 3000 BC. Its elongated corridor, extending nearly 20 meters, leads to a circular chamber at the heart of the mound. This passage is meticulously aligned with the sunrise on the winter solstice, allowing the first light of the year to penetrate the inner sanctum in a display that must have been breathtaking to the eyes of those who worshipped, mourned, or celebrated within these walls. The architecture is deceptively simple. Massive limestone slabs form the walls and roof, yet their placement exhibits a subtle mastery of both engineering and astronomy. Each stone bears the marks of human hands, smoothed, shaped, and positioned with care. How did these early Neolithic builders transport and lift such heavy monoliths without the benefit of modern tools? Some theories suggest the use of wooden sledges, ropes, and sheer human coordination. Others posit that now lost techniques of leverage and rolling may have been employed. Whatever the method, the result is a structure that has withstood millennia, a testament not only to the practical skill of its creators, but also to their profound understanding of permanence and ritual significance. Walking through the corridor of the Dolmen de Soto, one feels the weight of history pressing inward. The walls narrow slightly, guiding the eye toward the chamber at the center, a space meant for the dead, yet suffused with the rhythms of the living. Excavations have revealed numerous burials, often accompanied by pottery, flint tools, and personal ornaments. These artifacts suggest a society deeply invested in the care and commemoration of its dead, but questions remain. Were these offerings simply tokens of remembrance, or did they serve a broader symbolic or cosmological purpose? Was the passage itself a journey, a metaphoric transition from the realm of the living to the domain of spirits, or perhaps even an astronomical instrument marking sacred times of the year? The solstice alignment is particularly intriguing. Each winter, as the sun rises on the horizon, its first rays travel precisely down the corridor, illuminating the chamber within. The effect is subtle, yet powerful, bathing the stone floor in golden light. Some archaeologists interpret this as evidence of ritual sophistication, hinting at early beliefs about the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. Others suggest the alignment could have served as a calendar, a way for Neolithic communities to track the passage of seasons, ensuring agricultural cycles were observed with precision. But the question remains, how did a people with no written records encode such precise astronomical knowledge into stone, and what other meanings might have been embedded in this alignment that have been lost to time. Adding to the mystery are the intricate carvings discovered on several of the dolmen stones. Spirals, concentric circles, and geometric motifs decorate the walls, their significance still debated by scholars. Were these purely decorative, or did they serve a ritual or symbolic function? Some researchers suggest the carvings represent celestial bodies, maps of the landscape, or even spiritual journeys undertaken by the deceased. Others propose that they encode myths, oral traditions, or abstract concepts, memories etched in stone that have outlasted language itself. And yet, without a Rosetta Stone of Neolithic thought, any interpretation remains speculative, hovering between plausible reconstruction and the realm of mystery. The construction of the Dolmen de Soto also invites reflection on the social and organizational capabilities of its builders. To erect such a structure required coordination, labor, and a shared cultural vision. The passage alone, carefully roofed with successive layers of heavy limestone, reflects a deep understanding of weight distribution, pressure, and durability. Could such knowledge have arisen purely through trial and error, or was there a deliberate transmission of architectural wisdom within these communities? If the latter is true, we are glimpsing not just a physical monument, but a social achievement, a marker of shared knowledge, communal effort, and spiritual devotion that binds a community across generations. Yet, even with these practical explanations, the Dolmen de Soto retains an air of the inexplicable. The precise combination of astronomical alignment, geometric design, and ritual function suggests an intentionality that reaches beyond the merely functional. Could the dolmen have been a site of pilgrimage, a locus of regional authority, or a spiritual center where the living communed with the dead? How might those who walked its corridors have perceived the interplay of light, shadow, and stone, and what emotions did these spaces evoke? Were these structures intended to intimidate, inspire, comfort, or guide, perhaps all at once? Comparisons with other megalithic sites across Europe, such as the nearby Dolmen de Menga or the distant Newgrange in Ireland, highlight the universality of certain architectural themes, yet each monument retains its own mystery. The similarities suggest a widespread understanding of astronomy, geometry, and ritual, yet the differences point to localized adaptation, cultural identity, and spiritual interpretation. How did knowledge traverse such vast distances in the Neolithic world, and to what extent were these monuments independent inventions versus the result of cultural exchange? These questions linger because, despite intensive excavation and study, definitive answers remain elusive. In many ways, the Dolmen de Soto reminds us of the tension between permanence and impermanence. The stones themselves endure, seemingly eternal, yet the meanings they once carried, rituals, beliefs, stories, have largely vanished. Modern observers can walk the passage, marvel at the alignment, and analyze the carvings, but the lived experience of the builders, the emotional resonance of ceremonial acts, and the spiritual significance of the space remain largely inaccessible. We are left with fragments, bones, pottery, and stone. And in these fragments lies both the allure and the frustration of prehistoric archaeology, a tangible connection to the past that simultaneously resists full comprehension. As we linger at the entrance of the Dolmen de Soto, the early morning light softens over the mound, casting long shadows along the corridor. The air is still, and yet one can imagine the echoes of ancient footsteps, the hum of ceremony, and the murmur of voices long silenced. In these quiet moments, the dolmen speaks not only of death, but of continuity, memory, and human ingenuity. It challenges our understanding of the Neolithic world, asking us to consider what knowledge, beliefs, and experiences were embedded in stone, and to wonder how much has been irrevocably lost. Perhaps the greatest mystery is not merely how the dolmen was built, or why it aligns with the sun, but why it continues to captivate us millennia later. Why do these stones, arranged with care and intention by hands long gone, still draw our gaze and stir our imagination? Could the Dolmen de Soto, like other megalithic monuments around the world, have served as a bridge between life and death, humanity and the cosmos, the known and the unknowable? And if so, what other layers of meaning lie hidden beneath its earth-covered mound, awaiting discovery or interpretation? As the shadows lengthen across the plains of Huelva, the Dolmen de Soto stands silently, its presence unyielding yet enigmatic. Each carefully placed stone, each carved spiral, each ray of light that penetrates the chamber reminds us that the mysteries of the Neolithic world are not merely historical curiosities. They are invitations to ponder the intentions, skills, and spiritual imaginations of those who came before us. And as we step away, leaving the dolmen to its quiet vigil, the questions remain. What drove these communities to such extraordinary feats? What rituals, beliefs, or cosmic insights have been lost with time? And what other secrets, buried yet enduring, might the stones themselves still hold, waiting for humanity to listen once more? From the enduring stones of the Dolmen de Soto in southern Spain, where Neolithic builders left their mark upon the rising sun, we now journey eastward, across vast landscapes and centuries, to the rugged foothills of the Zaravshan River in what is now northwestern Tajikistan. Here lies Sarazm, an ancient stone settlement whose silent ruins whisper of a civilization both sophisticated and enigmatic. Unlike the monumental dolmens of Europe, Sarazm's legacy is woven into the fabric of daily life, its foundations, workshops, and streets offering a glimpse into a society that thrived nearly 5 millennia ago, yet remains shrouded in mystery. Approaching Sarazm, the first impression is one of scale and integration. The settlement sprawls across a plateau, its stones blending with the undulating hills and the river's bend below. Unlike the monumental tombs and ceremonial structures we have explored, Sarazm was not built for the dead alone, but for the living, a bustling hub of early urban organization where stone, mud, and clay were carefully shaped to create homes, fortifications, and communal spaces. Its layout is both deliberate and organic, suggesting an advanced understanding of spatial planning and defensive strategy. Streets run at calculated angles, while dwellings cluster in a way that balances accessibility with privacy. Even in its ruinous state, the settlement conveys an unmistakable sense of intention, hinting at a society that valued order, protection, and communal cohesion. Archaeological excavations reveal the remarkable complexity of Sarazm's material culture. Foundations of rectangular houses, some with multiple rooms, point to social stratification and household specialization. Workshops for metallurgy and ceramics attest to a community that was both industrious and skilled, producing copper tools and ornamental items that would have been prized not just locally but across regions. The inhabitants of Sarazm, it seems, were adept traders as well as artisans, their connections extending into distant lands, perhaps even as far as the Iranian Plateau or Central Asia's fertile valleys. But how did a settlement in such a remote and challenging landscape manage such extensive networks? What roots, knowledge, or social structures enabled Sarazm to flourish in an era when transportation and communication were arduous at best? Walking through the remnants of the stone streets, one senses the interplay between the practical and the symbolic. Some structures appear fortified, with thick walls and carefully designed gateways, while others suggest ritualistic or ceremonial functions. Scholars have identified possible altars and hearths that may have served as focal points for communal gatherings, but their exact purpose remains elusive. Were these spaces purely functional, or did they embody religious or cosmological beliefs? Could Sarazm have been more than a settlement, perhaps a spiritual center, a waypoint along trade routes, or a nexus of ritual and commerce intertwined? The dating of Sarazm, between 3000 and 2500 BC, situates it in a period of remarkable transformation in Central Asia. Farming, metallurgy, and long-distance exchange were rapidly evolving, and communities like Sarazm were at the forefront of these shifts. Yet despite its apparent sophistication, the settlement ultimately vanished, leaving behind only its stone foundations and scattered artifacts. What caused its decline? Was it environmental change, conflict, economic disruption, or a combination of factors now obscured by time? The absence of written records leaves these questions unanswered, forcing us to rely on the silent testimony of stone, pottery, and metal to reconstruct the rhythms of life that once pulsed here. Artifacts from Sarazm provide tantalizing clues, but also deepen the mystery. Elaborate ceramics, engraved with geometric patterns, sit alongside copper tools and small ornamental objects fashioned from semi-precious stones. Some researchers interpret these designs as symbolic language, perhaps denoting social roles, clan affiliations, or spiritual motifs. Others suggest they may encode calendrical or astronomical information, hinting at an awareness of celestial cycles similar to that evidenced at Dolmen de Soto. But without a decipherable key, the meaning of these artifacts remains conjectural. Were the symbols a form of communication, a method of recording transactions, or purely decorative expressions of aesthetic or spiritual sensibility? The architecture itself provokes questions that linger long after the sun sets over the Zarafshan Hills. Certain buildings exhibit sophisticated construction techniques, with stone foundations carefully leveled and mud brick superstructures layered with precision. Some rooms contain evidence of repeated use and renovation, implying long-term habitation and adaptive strategies. Other structures appear deliberately abandoned, raising the possibility of ritual closure or catastrophic events. Could these architectural choices reflect not only practical concerns, but also social or spiritual norms, codifying rules about who could inhabit certain spaces or how communities interacted with the built environment? Trade and metallurgy further complicate the picture. Excavations at Sarazm have uncovered evidence of copper smelting and tool production, as well as imported materials such as obsidian and semi-precious stones. This suggests a settlement deeply integrated into regional and perhaps even interregional networks. How did these early communities acquire and control such resources? What routes and alliances allowed Sarazm to thrive? And why did such a connected settlement ultimately fade from history? Even with modern archaeological techniques, the answers remain elusive, tantalizingly out of reach. Adding to the intrigue is Sarazm's apparent spiritual or ritual dimension. Some scholars suggest that certain open spaces, hearths, or elevated platforms served ceremonial functions, perhaps connected to fertility, seasonal cycles, or ancestor veneration. Yet without textual evidence, interpretation is speculative, leaving room for both careful scholarly reconstruction and imaginative hypotheses. Could Sarazm have been a place where the sacred and the mundane intertwined seamlessly, a settlement where daily labor and ritual observance were inseparable, and where stone, fire, and metal were both practical tools and conduits of meaning? Despite, or perhaps because of, these unanswered questions, Sarazm continues to captivate archaeologists and historians. It represents a window into a formative era of human civilization, yet one shrouded in ambiguity. The precision of its streets, the sophistication of its metallurgy, and the elegance of its ceramics all point to a people who were not merely surviving, but shaping their environment and cultural landscape in ways that resonate across millennia. And yet, as with so many prehistoric sites, the deeper narratives remain hidden, encrypted in material remnants, whose full significance may never be revealed. Standing at the edge of the Sarazm Plateau, one can imagine the settlement as it once was. Smoke rising from hearths, craftsmen shaping copper, traders exchanging goods, and families moving through the streets with purpose and familiarity. The mountains frame the horizon. The river bends gracefully below, and the stones beneath one's feet are silent witnesses to a world both alien and intimately human. In this quiet moment, the mind naturally drifts to the questions that have long haunted scholars. What beliefs shaped the daily life of Sarazm? What strategies allowed it to flourish in an era when survival was never guaranteed? And what caused the sudden disappearance of a settlement that, by all accounts, was thriving and sophisticated? Perhaps the greatest mystery of Sarazm is not merely its physical remains, but the civilization it represents, a people whose ingenuity, artistry, and ambition are evident in stone and metal, yet whose voices have been lost to time. Unlike monumental tombs or aligned dolmens, Sarazm does not speak with the authority of spectacle. Instead, it murmurs in the language of routine, of communal effort, and of subtle yet profound organization. Its story is written not in inscriptions, but in foundations, workshops, and artifacts, leaving us to piece together its meaning from fragments and to imagine the lives that animated its streets. As the wind moves through the sparse remnants of Sarazm, carrying dust and echoes of millennia, the settlement stands as a testament to the ingenuity and mystery of early human communities. Each stone, each hearth, each artifact challenges us to reconsider what we know about prehistoric life, social complexity, and cultural connectivity. And yet, for all that has been uncovered, so much remains unresolved. Were the builders of Sarazm simply pragmatic, or were they guided by spiritual, cosmological, or ritual imperatives now lost to memory? Did the settlement serve as a hub of regional influence, a sacred center, or both? And crucially, what other secrets lie buried beneath the soil, awaiting discovery or interpretation by future generations of explorers, scholars, and dreamers? Sarazm, like the dolmens, stone circles, and necropolises we have visited on this journey, reminds us that the ancient world is a landscape of both knowledge and enigma. It challenges us to listen carefully, to observe, and to wonder. In its silent stones and subtle alignments, we glimpse the ingenuity, ambition, and spirituality of a civilization that thrived thousands of years ago. A civilization whose story is only partially written, leaving us to imagine what might still be hidden beneath the earth, waiting to speak to those who seek to uncover it.